Hi, I'm Mary. I'm working with my husband Samuel at his family's small business. The business, run by my father-in-law Liam, has about 6 employees. Liam is quiet and doesn't get involved much in day-to-day tasks. Instead, Samuel, who will likely be the next president, is very dedicated and works hard with clients and new projects. Everyone comes together for big projects, creating a lively and energetic atmosphere. I've been a part of this for 8 years since marrying Samuel. Recently, my mother-in-law Amanda has expressed some concerns about me being involved. When I came home early to make dinner while Samuel worked late, Amanda confronted me, saying, "How long are you going to stay in our family business?" It seemed like she was more focused on criticizing me than enjoying her retirement. In response, I kept calm and asked, "What do you mean by clinging?" Amanda jumped in, suggesting that my marriage to Samuel was just a way for me to get a job at their company and that I was taking advantage of it. This wasn't the first time she had made such accusations, and it was becoming a regular issue. When I married Samuel, I chose to leave my old job and join his family's business because I wanted to, not because I had no other options, as Amanda seemed to think. I tried to explain, "Mom, it's not that I couldn't work elsewhere. I chose to be here." But she didn't seem to understand and continued to believe her own assumptions about my reasons. The tension with Amanda went beyond just words. Even though she had promised to manage the household after retiring, she didn't help out much. Instead, she insisted, "I've worked all my life. Now it's the daughter-in-law's turn to handle the household duties." So I often ended up managing dinner and cleanup. One afternoon, I mustered up the courage to talk to Amanda about a problem that had been bothering me. "Amanda," I started carefully, "I've noticed that there are often dirty dishes left in the sink. It would really help if you could clean up after yourself." Instead of responding calmly, Amanda reacted angrily. She accused me of overstepping my role as a daughter-in-law and trying to impose rules in her home. I was worried about dinner getting delayed because of this argument, so I tried to stay calm and suggested, "Mom, let's talk about this later. I need to start preparing dinner." Amanda agreed and went to the living room, leaving me to focus on getting the meal ready. Both Liam and Samuel had seen Amanda's harsh treatment of me and tried to step in when they could, but their efforts often seemed to have little effect. When they spoke up, it usually only made Amanda more upset with me. Despite their concern and attempts to help, Amanda's words were still painful. While I never faced physical violence, the emotional hurt was significant. Liam and Samuel's support was crucial in helping me cope with Amanda's harsh remarks, but it was especially tested on one tough morning. After cleaning up from breakfast and getting ready to leave for work, Amanda suddenly shouted, "Oh my, what a mess. A trash heap here." And without any warning, she threw a bucket of water on my handbag. I was stunned, feeling a mix of shock and anger. "What are you doing?" I asked, my voice shaking with disbelief. Amanda's response was dismissive and childish. "Oh, was that your stuff? I thought it was just a big piece of trash." Her careless attitude only made me more upset. "Even if you thought it was trash, who pours water on it?" I asked, struggling to understand her lack of concern. As I sat across from Amanda in the morning light, she looked cold and determined, as if she had made up her mind to take a drastic step. "What kind of reasoning is that? Now the carpet is soaked, and what about the vacuum cleaner?" I said, frustrated and confused, as I tried to dry my important work documents. Amanda, with a chilling indifference, said, "You don't need to go to work anymore." I was completely bewildered. "Excuse me?" I replied, stunned and in disbelief. Amanda's next words felt like a sharp blow to my heart. "You've been clinging to this house for 8 years, but today I can finally get rid of you." Her voice was filled with anger and determination I had never seen from her before. I was overwhelmed with sadness and confusion. "Getting rid of me?" I repeated, my voice trembling. "She made me feel like a complete outsider in this family. My daughter is joining the company, so you need to leave. Today is your last day. Just bow your head to your father-in-law and Samuel and apologize for all the trouble you've caused." Her mocking laughter only deepened my hurt. She was using my job to force me out. I had dedicated years to this role, building respect and creating memories. I was shocked and heartbroken, struggling to understand how my sacrifices seemed so meaningless to her. "Are you sure about this? Wasn't Emma working in a clothing store in Philadelphia?" I asked, confused and worried. My job was more than just a paycheck. It was important to me. Meanwhile, Emma, my sister-in-law, was apparently tired of city life and wanted to return. She said she was tired of dealing with the cold people in Philadelphia, so I promised her a job when she came back, Amanda said with finality. "She's coming back immediately, and now that she is, I want you out of this house." Her words hit me like a freezing gust of wind. With one sweeping decision, she was appending my life and dismissing my role in the family without any chance for discussion. She handed me an envelope. "I've written your resignation letter," she said, effectively banishing me from our home. In that moment, my heart felt completely shattered. All my years of hard work and dedication seemed to be dismissed as if they were nothing but scraps of paper. Amanda's actions had ripped apart the fabric of our family bond, leaving it deeply scarred. With a heavy heart, I walked the short 5 minutes to the company, a route I had traveled many times before, but never with such a swirl of emotions. Each step under the cool morning sky felt heavy with the weight of the situation. When I arrived at the office, I told my father-in-law, Liam, and my husband, Samuel, about Amanda's harsh decision. They looked shocked and restrained, but they managed to stay calm despite the chaos. They suggested that maybe stepping away for a while could show Amanda the real impact of her demands. This idea sent my heart into even more turmoil. After working so hard for the family business for years, the thought of taking a break longer than the short Thanksgiving or Christmas holidays felt overwhelming and strange. Encouraged by Samuel and Liam's supportive advice, "Why don't you spread your wings for a change?" I decided to take a short trip. As I packed, I reflected on my life, the choices I had made, and what the future might hold. Meanwhile, my sister-in-law, Emma, who was supposed to replace me at the company, arrived unexpectedly late at 2 p.m. Her careless attitude left Samuel and Liam frustrated and confused. Despite their attempts to help her understand the business, Emma seemed uninterested. Hearing this made me anxious about the company's future, even as I looked forward to my trip. I left without another word to Amanda and quickly set off. As the train moved, I looked out at the changing scenery, using the time to think about my past and future. The trip gave me a chance to take a break and reflect. While enjoying local seafood specialties, I often thought about my family and the business. On the 5th day of my getaway, my peaceful time was suddenly interrupted by a tearful call from Emma. "What's going on?" Mom said it was an easy job, just sitting in a chair, but Samuel and Dad are acting like I can't do anything right, Emma complained. Her words mirrored what my mother-in-law had probably told her, and I was taken aback. Even though I was enjoying a more relaxed pace during my trip, I knew it was time to help Emma face reality. "So Emma, how good are you with computers?" I asked, sensing her hesitation. "Well, I usually watch videos online and play games too," she replied. Her answer suggested she wasn't very skilled with computers. I asked her if she knew how to use software tools like Word or Excel. Her confused response surprised me, especially since she had worked in the Philadelphia apparel industry, where tasks like tracking sales and managing inventory would have required basic computer skills. "Can you handle calculations for sales or fill out documents?" I asked. She confidently said she could do those tasks. However, when I asked, "Can you calculate the right amount of tax?" her confidence wavered, and she answered uncertainly. This wasn't just about her math skills, but about her ability to apply them in a real business setting. While Emma might have other talents, it was clear that she wasn't sure about the skills needed for the job. Her discomfort with calculations seemed to be a big part of why Liam and Samuel were criticizing her. "It's crucial to confront the motives of my mother-in-law and her supporters who want to push me out," I said. "Since you're taking over my role, I expect you to manage the accounting tasks properly. Remember that email etiquette is important. A casual tone might work with friends, but it's not suitable for business communications. Also, you'll be responsible for scheduling staff shifts. Our team is small, but we take everyone's requests for time off seriously, so make sure not to prioritize your convenience over theirs." I advised her firmly, continuing to outline her responsibilities. I could hear Emma sobbing on the other end of the line. It was a tough conversation, but it was necessary for her to understand the reality and expectations of the role she was stepping into. Emma abruptly ended the call, clearly overwhelmed by the tasks at hand. Over the next 4 days, I took the opportunity to explore Philadelphia, the very place Emma had left. Surprisingly, I found the people there warmer than expected, which was a stark contrast to the cold-hearted nature of my mother-in-law, Amanda, and Emma, who seemed determined to push me out. A week after leaving my job, I returned to my in-laws' house. As soon as I arrived, Amanda confronted me, her face red with fury. "How dare you make my daughter cry? You won't get away with this." Amanda yelled, her eyes filled with anger and confusion. Before she could reach me, Samuel and Liam stepped in, trying to calm her down. Despite their efforts, Amanda's anger showed no signs of easing. Samuel explained calmly but firmly, "Emma is upset because she was scolded for trying to boss around her employees, even though she doesn't know how to do the job properly. It's not Mary's fault. Besides, Mary hasn't been here for a week, so she couldn't have upset Emma." Amanda shot back emotionally, "It's because of her. This woman is the reason for Emma's troubles. She accused me without any real basis." "Where is Emma, by the way?" I asked, looking around the room. She was nowhere to be found, adding to the mystery. "It's odd. Emma has nowhere else to go since she gave up her apartment in Philadelphia. I assumed she'd be here," I said, puzzled. Samuel then shared, "Emma's locked herself in her room. She's been crying and doesn't want to go to work anymore. She's overwhelmed because she doesn't have the skills needed for the job." Amanda was still upset and accused, "You've been turning Samuel and Liam against me. They wouldn't say the company is doing better with you instead of Emma unless you made them think badly about her." Samuel sighed deeply, clearly tired of the family drama and his failed attempts to clear things up. "Mom," he started again, trying to explain, "it might sound unusual, but Mary is really good at her job. She's certified in bookkeeping, she's great at secretarial work, and she even studied Spanish abroad. She manages all the multilingual communications at the company." He said this proudly. Amanda looked surprised, obviously not knowing about my qualifications and what I had done. "That sounds like something from a TV show," she mumbled. Thinking back, I shared that in college I was so focused on getting various certifications and studying that I barely had time for social activities or romance. It was during this time that I met Samuel when he visited my company for business. I found myself telling the story of how we first met, hoping to clear up misunderstandings and show the reality of our lives. However, I realized Amanda wasn't interested in hearing about my qualifications or past achievements, so I steered the conversation back to the current situation. In short, I took care of many different tasks at the company, like accounting, scheduling, talking with other companies, and managing employee shifts, I explained, describing my wide range of responsibilities. Samuel added, "The work environment has been much better since you became less involved, Mom." Amanda was visibly surprised by his comment. At that moment, Liam, Samuel's father, chimed in with unexpected news. "We're thinking about closing the company soon. Emma made a big mistake. Instead of preparing some important documents, she decided to answer phone calls because she thought it would be more fun. While we were away, she was rude to an important contact from another company, which could cause serious problems." I was shocked and covered my mouth with my hand. "I can't believe Emma would do something like that," I murmured, feeling disbelief and fear about how her actions could potentially ruin the company. While I was worrying about everything that was happening, the situation took another unexpected turn. When I explained our situation to the president of the other company, he suggested it might be time to think about merging our companies. He was interested in taking over our family business. Liam continued, "This was unexpected but hopeful news. A merger could help stabilize our customer base, which Samuel has been working hard to achieve through his efforts in sales." This news was a relief to Samuel and Liam, but not to Amanda. She suddenly objected, "That's not acceptable. Samuel should become the president. This is our company, isn't it? He shouldn't just be an employee." Amanda exclaimed passionately, unable to accept losing the prestige of owning a company. Her outburst caught Emma's attention, and she came downstairs to see what was going on. Amid the chaos, Liam spoke up with a calm but firm tone, "I am divorcing you. You've not only resisted change and neglected your responsibilities at home and with the family, but I've also found out about your affairs with younger men. I can't support this behavior any longer." This announcement shocked everyone, especially Samuel and me. Liam then took some divorce papers and a photo of Amanda with a young man from a shelf in the living room and placed them on the table. "If you look at these divorce papers now and pack up your things, I won't ask for alimony. Trying to get money from you would be pointless," he said firmly. "How can you say that? Haven't I dedicated myself to this house all these years?" Amanda protested. "Have you done any real housework in the last 8 years? Spending someone else's money on young men doesn't count as devotion to this house," Liam replied, sounding more frustrated than we'd ever heard him. This was the first time we saw this stern side of Liam, who was usually mild-mannered, as he addressed the deep-seated issues in the family. In the middle of all this family drama, seeing Liam, usually so calm and controlled, looking visibly upset was a shock to everyone, especially Emma, who had just walked into the room. She shook slightly, clearly shocked and scared. "Emma, this affects you too," Liam said firmly. "You came back because you couldn't make it on your own in Philadelphia. Now you can't even find a job here, and you act like you're better than everyone else. You've stopped trying to work altogether and seem to be avoiding responsibility. It's time for you to leave this house as well." Emma was stunned, her face showing confusion and denial. "Wait a minute, Dad. Even if Mom has her problems, I'm still your daughter, right?" she protested, desperately trying to hold on to her place in the family. Amanda, feeling hurt by her daughter's words, asked in shock, "Are you betraying me now, Emma?" Her voice was filled with hurt and disbelief. As things got more heated, Liam quickly stepped in to prevent more arguments. "To avoid more trouble, I've arranged for both of you to stay with someone I know until you get back on your feet. They'll be here soon to pick you up, so please pack your essential things," he said firmly, making it clear there was no room for discussion. With heavy hearts and no other options, Amanda and Emma packed up their belongings. Soon after, Liam's acquaintance, who managed a factory with living quarters, arrived to take them to their temporary home. Meanwhile, Samuel, Liam, and I used this time to inform our employees about the upcoming merger with a larger company, preparing them for the changes and challenges ahead. During these big changes, I found out I was pregnant. I shared the happy news with the president of the company acquiring ours. He was excited and promised to find a suitable replacement for my position to ensure a smooth transition. With the promise of new opportunities and the excitement of our growing family, Samuel and Liam threw themselves into their work even more, motivated by the bright future that lay ahead.
I never expected to find anything in my parents' attic besides dust and memories. But there I was, 6 months after their funeral, discovering that even dust could hide secrets. My name is Casey, and I thought I was ready to finally sort through their belongings. Ryan, my boyfriend, had offered to help, but this felt like something I needed to do alone. Looking back, maybe I should have taken him up on it. The loose floorboard caught my attention when I dropped an old photo album, and it landed with an odd, hollow sound. I probably would have missed it otherwise. Too focused on getting through another box of Dad's old sweaters that still smelled faintly of his aftershave. What the hell? I muttered, running my fingers along the edge of the board. It lifted easily, revealing a small metal safe I'd never seen before. My heart started racing. In all the times I'd played up here as a kid, how had I never noticed this? The safe wasn't anything fancy, just a basic combination lock model you could buy at any hardware store. I sat back on my heels thinking, Mom's birthday? Their anniversary? After 3 failed attempts, I tried the date they bought this house. The lock clicked open. Inside was a single envelope, yellowed with age. My hands were shaking as I opened it and unfolded the letter inside. The handwriting was Dad's, but more hurried than his usual neat script. If you're reading this, something has happened to us. Henry knows what he did. Don't let him convince you otherwise. The truth is in the Milton files. I read it 3 more times, trying to make sense of it. Uncle Henry? The same uncle who'd helped arrange their funeral, who'd been bringing me dinner every Sunday since the accident. My phone buzzed, making me jump. A text from Henry himself. Still coming to dinner tomorrow night? Linda's making your favorite lasagna. I stared at the message, my thumb hovering over the reply button. The Henry the first knew was the fun uncle who taught me to ride a bike, who helped me move into my first apartment. But Dad's words kept echoing in my head. Henry knows what he did. Sorry, not feeling well, I typed back. Rain check. His response came immediately. Of course, sweetheart. Feel better. Let me know if you need anything. The kindness in his message made my stomach twist. I folded the letter carefully and slipped it into my pocket, then replaced the floorboard. As I did, I noticed something else, a faint pencil marking on the wood. 2nd floor. Milton Legal. Dad's old law firm, where he'd worked for 20 years before the accident. 2nd floor. Was that where I'd find these Milton files? I grabbed my phone again and called Jenna, my best friend who still worked there as a paralegal. Hey, weird question. Do you know if they kept any of Dad's old files? Most were transferred when the firm merged, she said. But there's still some storage rooms upstairs. Why? Just trying to tie up loose ends, I lied. Any chance you could help me look through them sometime? There was a pause. Casey, are you okay? You sound strange. I'm fine, I said quickly. Just found some old papers that got me thinking. Well, I can probably get you in next week. But you'll have to clear it with the partners first. After we hung up, I sat in the attic surrounded by boxes of my parents' lives, feeling like I was looking at everything through a different lens. All those Sunday dinners with Henry and Linda, the way he'd stepped in to handle everything after the accident. Had it all been guilt? Or something worse? The sun was setting, casting long shadows through the attic windows. I should have been finishing up the sorting, but instead, I pulled out my laptop. Time to see what I could find about the weeks leading up to my parents' accident. Whatever Henry had done, whatever truth Dad wanted me to find, I was going to uncover it. I just hoped I was ready for what I might learn about my family in the process. I hadn't slept much since finding that note. 3 days of late-night internet searches and old newspaper articles had left me with bloodshot eyes and more questions than answers. Ryan noticed something was off the moment he walked into our apartment that evening. You look like hell, he said, setting down takeout bags on the kitchen counter. When's the last time you actually slept? I closed my laptop quickly, but not before he caught a glimpse of what I was reading. Are those accident reports? I hesitated, then pulled Dad's note from my pocket. I'd been carrying it everywhere, like a talisman. I need to show you something. Ryan read it twice, his expression growing more concerned with each pass. Casey, this could mean anything. Or nothing. Your dad wrote this how long ago? The paper's old, but does it matter? He knew something was wrong. He was trying to warn me about Henry. The same Henry who's been taking care of you since the accident? Ryan started unpacking the food, his movements more forceful than necessary. Who checks on you every week? That Henry. Maybe that's why he does it. Guilt. The words sounded hollow, even to me, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I was onto something. I'm meeting Jenna at Milton Legal tomorrow. Dad's old files might tell us something. Ryan set down the containers and turned to face me. Us? I thought you had to work tomorrow. I called in sick. Jesus, essay. He ran a hand through his hair, something he only did when he was really frustrated. You can't keep doing this. You haven't been to the gym in weeks. You barely sleep, and now you're skipping work. This is important, I snapped. They were my parents, Ryan. If someone did something to them, they died in a car accident. His voice rose, then immediately softened when he saw me flinch. A terrible, tragic accident. But this obsession isn't healthy. It's like you're trying to create a mystery where there isn't one. I stood up, my chair scraping against the floor. You don't understand. Then help me understand. Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're throwing away everything good in your life to chase shadows. The silence that followed felt like a physical thing between us. Ryan moved toward me, his face softening. Look, I love you, and I want to help, but you have to let me in. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. A text from Henry. Haven't heard from you in a few days. Everything okay? My hands started shaking. Ryan noticed. What is it? It's him. He keeps checking on me. I showed Ryan the message. Don't you think that's suspicious? I think it's what family does, Ryan said quietly. They check on each other. Another text came through. Linda and I are worried. Dylan mentioned he hasn't seen you at the gym either. Want to grab coffee tomorrow? Dylan. My cousin. Of course he'd noticed my absence. We usually did morning workouts together. The thought of facing either of them right now made my stomach turn. I can't deal with this right now, I muttered, turning off my phone. I need to focus on tomorrow. Those files aren't going anywhere, Ryan interrupted. But I might be. The words hit me like a physical blow. What? I can't watch you destroy yourself over this. His voice was gentle but firm. Either let me help you work through this properly or... He left the alternative hanging in the air between us. Part of me wanted to give in, to let him hold me and tell me everything would be okay. But Dad's words kept echoing in my head. Henry knows what he did. I need to know the truth, I said finally. With or without you. Ryan stared at me for a long moment, then grabbed his keys from the counter. Call me when you're ready to talk about what's really going on here. The door closed behind him with a soft click that somehow hurt more than if he'd slammed it. I looked at the abandoned takeout containers, then at my laptop screen still showing the accident report photos. Tomorrow, I'd find those Milton files. Tomorrow, I'd start getting answers. But tonight, sitting alone in my kitchen with cold Chinese food and the weight of Dad's note in my pocket, I wondered if Ryan was right about what I might be losing in the process. The Milton legal storage room smelled like old paper and broken dreams. Jenna had gotten me in early, before the regular staff arrived, but we'd been here for hours with nothing to show for it. These are mostly just routine contracts, Jenna said, closing another dusty box. Your dad was thorough, I'll give him that. Every document's perfectly filed. I rubbed my tired eyes. There has to be something. The note specifically mentioned Milton files. Casey. Jenna hesitated. Maybe Ryan's right. Maybe. Don't. I cut her off, pulling another box from the shelf. Not you too. The box was labeled Personal JL, my dad's initials. Inside, beneath a stack of manila folders, I found a thick envelope. My hands trembled as I opened it. Oh my God, I whispered. Bank statements. Loan documents. A series of emails between Dad and Henry. As I read, the pieces started falling into place. A failed investment, a desperate cover-up, and nearly $500,000 gone. Casey. Jenna moved closer. What is it? He ruined them, I said, my voice shaking. Henry convinced Dad to invest everything in some development project. When it failed, he forged Dad's signature on new loans to cover the losses. They were drowning in debt when they died. Jenna took the papers, scanning them quickly. This is serious. If these documents are real, they're real. I grabbed my phone, pulling up the accident report photos I'd been obsessing over. Look at the date of the last loan. 3 days before the crash. They were driving back from the bank when it happened. The implications hit me like a physical blow. Had they been distracted? Upset? Was Henry responsible for more than just their financial ruin? My phone buzzed, another text from Henry. Linda's worried sick. Please come to dinner tonight. We need to talk. Something inside me snapped. You know what? Fine. Let's talk. Casey, wait. Jenna reached for my arm, but I was already heading for the door. Make copies of everything, I called back. I'm going to need them. The drive to Henry's house was a blur. Every Sunday dinner, every family gathering, every time he'd played the caring uncle, it all felt like a lie now. I barely registered parking or walking to the door. Linda answered, her face lighting up. Casey, we've been so worried. Where is he? Henry appeared behind her, smile fading as he saw my expression. Casey? What's wrong? I pushed past them both into the living room, throwing the envelope onto the coffee table. Want to explain these? Henry's face went pale as he looked at the documents. Linda picked up one of the loan papers, her hand going to her mouth. Henry, what is this? It's not what you think, he started, but I cut him off. Really? Because I think you convinced Dad to invest everything in your failed project. I think when it went under, you forged his signature to cover your tracks. I think you watched them struggle with debt you created, and then they died driving back from cleaning up your mess. Casey, please. Linda reached for me, but I stepped back. Was the accident really an accident? My voice cracked. Or were they just too distracted by the financial nightmare you created? That's enough. Henry's shout made us both jump. For a moment, I saw something in his eyes. Not guilt, but fear. You don't understand what happened. Your father. Don't you dare blame him for this. I was trying to help them. Henry's composure cracked. The investment was supposed to set everyone up for life. When it failed, he ran a hand over his face. I couldn't let them lose everything. The loans were temporary, just until I could fix things. But you never fixed anything, did you? I picked up the papers, hands shaking. You just watched them drown. The front door opened, and Dylan walked in, freezing at the scene before him. What's going on? I looked at my cousin, at Henry's son, and saw the confusion in his eyes. How much did he know? How many other lives had Henry's lies touched? Ask your father, I said quietly, heading for the door. Ask him what really happened to my parents. Behind me, I heard Linda's soft crying, Dylan's questions, and Henry's desperate, Casey, wait. But I didn't stop. I couldn't. The truth was finally out, but it didn't feel like victory. It felt like losing my family all over again. My boss's voice droned on through the speakerphone, but I could barely focus on his words. 3 weeks had passed since the confrontation at Henry's house, and my life was unraveling like a cheap sweater. Casey? Are you even listening? I snapped back to attention. Yes, sorry. The Richardson account has been reassigned, along with your other major clients. He sighed. Look, I understand you're going through something, but this isn't the first deadline you've missed. Take some time off. Get yourself together. The call ended before I could respond. I stared at my phone, then at the stack of unopened mail on my kitchen counter. Another missed payment notice peeked out from beneath the takeout menu. My doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw Dylan shifting nervously in the hallway. I hadn't spoken to him since that night, but the look on his face made me open the door. Hey, he said quietly. Can we talk? I let him in, watching as he took in my apartment. Unwashed dishes, case files spread across every surface. Laptop showing more financial records I'd dug up. Mom's a mess, he said finally. Dad barely leaves his office. Whatever you found. The truth, I cut in.
I found the truth.
Did you? Dylan picked up one of the files. Because I've been doing some digging too. That investment. Dad wasn't the only one pushing for it. Your father was the one who brought him the opportunity in the first place. The words hit me like a slap. You're lying. I found the original proposal in Dad's office. Uncle Jack's signature, his handwriting. He was convinced it would work. Dylan's voice softened. When it failed, Dad tried to protect him. The loans were meant to buy time until the market recovered. Stop it. My hands were shaking. Dad wouldn't. He was human, Casey. He made mistakes. Dylan set down the file. Just like Dad did, trying to cover them up. Just like you're doing now. I looked around my apartment, really seeing it for the first time in weeks. Empty coffee cups. Takeout containers. A text from Ryan I still hadn't answered. I miss you. Please talk to me. You need to see something, Dylan said, pulling out his phone. He pulled up a video security footage from what looked like a parking garage. This was the day before the accident. My father appeared on screen, meeting Henry between parked cars. There was no audio, but their body language told the story. Dad, shoulders slumped in defeat. Henry, gesturing emphatically, then pulling Dad into a hug. He was trying to help, Dylan said softly. They both were. It just went wrong. My phone buzzed, Jenna calling. Probably about the other documents I'd asked her to track down. Documents that suddenly felt like weights around my neck. When's the last time you went to the gym? Dylan asked. Or saw Ryan? Or did anything besides chase this? I can't just let it go, I whispered, but the words sounded hollow, even to me. No one's asking you to. But this vendetta. He gestured at the chaos around us. It's destroying you. And it won't bring them back. My phone buzzed again, a text from my boss about HR paperwork. Another from my landlord about late rent. The walls of evidence I'd built suddenly felt like they were closing in. I don't know how to stop, I admitted, my voice cracking. Dylan stepped closer, and for a moment I saw our childhood reflected in his eyes. Summers by the pool, family barbecues. Dad and Henry teaching us to fish. All the memories I'd been rewriting as lies. Start by coming home, he said. Not to confront anyone. Just come to Sunday dinner. Talk to Mom. Let us be a family again. I can't face him. Then face yourself first. Dylan headed for the door, pausing with his hand on the knob. You're not the only one who lost something that day, Casey. But you might be the only one still choosing to lose more. He left me standing in my chaos, staring at the paused video of my father and Henry. The truth I'd been chasing was there in that grainy footage, not in the documents or bank statements, but in that simple moment of two brothers trying to protect each other. The question was, what was I trying to protect by holding on to my anger? The coffee shop was neutral ground, not Henry's territory, not mine. I'd chosen it carefully, somewhere public enough to keep us both civil. When he walked in, I almost didn't recognize him. The past month had aged him years. Thank you for meeting me, he said, sliding into the booth. His usual confidence was gone, replaced by something more fragile. I placed Dad's note on the table between us. I want to understand. Henry stared at the paper for a long moment. Jack wrote this the day I told him about the second round of losses. He was angry. Scared. Did you forge his signature on those loans? Yes. The admission came quietly, but not for the reasons you think. The market was going to turn around. I just needed time to. To what? Watch them drown in debt while you protected yourself. A young couple at the next table glanced over. Henry leaned forward, lowering his voice. I was protecting everyone. Your father's reputation, the family name, your future inheritance. My inheritance? I laughed bitterly. I inherited nothing but questions and a house full of memories. Casey. Henry reached for his pocket, pulled out an envelope. There's something you need to see. Inside was another security video still, different from the one Dylan showed me. This one showed Dad at what looked like an ATM, the timestamp just hours before the accident. What is this? The last withdrawal he made. $20,000. Henry's hands trembled slightly. He was coming to pay off one of the loans early. Against my advice. The roads were icy that night, but he insisted. The implication hit me like a physical blow. If Henry hadn't pushed them into those loans. Stop, I whispered, but he continued. I live with it every day. Every Sunday dinner, every family gathering. Watching you grieve, wanting to explain but knowing nothing I could say would make it right. A text lit up my phone, Ryan. I'm here if you need me. Always. I turned the phone face down. Why show me this now? Because you deserve the truth. All of it. Henry pulled out another document. This was your father's last email to me. I've never shown anyone. The timestamp was 9:47 p.m., just over an hour before the accident. Henry, I know you were trying to protect me. That's what brothers do. But I need to fix this myself. For Casey's future. For our family's honor. We'll talk tomorrow. Jack. My vision blurred. He knew about everything. He figured it out. Was coming to confront me about the forged signatures. Henry's voice cracked. I never got the chance to apologize. The barista called out someone's order, the normality of it jarring against the weight of this moment. Outside, life went on, people walking past, living their lives, unaware of how the ground was shifting beneath my feet. I wanted someone to blame, I said finally. It was easier than accepting it was just an accident. We all did. Henry stood slowly. Your father was a better man than me. He chose forgiveness over revenge. Maybe he knew something we didn't. As he turned to leave, I saw something fall from his pocket, an old photograph. I picked it up, Dad and Henry as teenagers, arms around each other, grinning at the camera. On the back, in Dad's handwriting, brothers, for better or worse. Keep it, Henry said quietly. Maybe it'll help you remember them as they were, not as we've made them in our grief. He left me sitting there, staring at the photo, the email, the ATM still. All these pieces of a puzzle I'd been trying to solve, only to find the picture was different than I'd imagined. My phone buzzed again. Dylan, this time, you okay? I looked at the empty coffee cup in front of me, at the note that had started all this. Dad's words seemed different now. Henry knows what he did. Was it an accusation, or a burden he was sharing with his brother? The truth wasn't in the documents or the bank statements. It was in that photograph, in that final email, in the choices both brothers made trying to protect each other and me. The question was, what choice would I make now? Sunday, dinner felt like walking into a minefield. Linda had insisted I come, saying we needed to heal as a family, but the tension around the dining room table was thick enough to cut with a knife. Dylan sat beside me, picking at his food. Across the table, Henry stared at his plate like it held answers to questions no one dared ask. Linda fluttered between us, filling silences with nervous chatter about the weather, her garden, anything but what we were all thinking about. I found more documents, I said suddenly, the words escaping before I could stop them. The clatter of silverware stopped. In Dad's old briefcase. Casey, Dylan warned, but I continued. There were other investments, weren't there? Before the one that ruined everything. I pulled out a folded paper, watching Henry's face. Dad covered for you. Multiplichimis. Linda's hand froze halfway to her water glass. Henry, it wasn't like that, Henry started, but I cut him off. Then what was it like? Because these show a pattern. Years of you taking risks with other people's money, and Dad cleaning up your messes. You don't understand. Then make me understand. My voice cracked. Because I've spent months trying to figure out why my father would trust you after everything, and now I find out it wasn't the first time. Henry stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. You want to understand? Fine. Your father and I made a pact when our own father died. We'd protect each other, no matter what. Every investment, every risk. It was for both our families. Henry, don't. Linda pleaded, but he continued. You think I didn't know what I was doing? I was trying to give us all the life we deserved. Your father understood that. He forgave me because he knew I was trying to protect our legacy. Your legacy. I laughed bitterly. Your legacy is my parents dying on an icy road, trying to fix your mistakes. The silence that followed was deafening. Linda's quiet sobs filled the room. Dylan reached for my hand under the table, but I pulled away. Casey, Henry's voice was barely a whisper. There's something else you need to know. He disappeared into his study, returning with a worn envelope. Inside was a life insurance policy, Dad's. The beneficiary line made my blood run cold. Henry's name, not mine. He changed it the week before the accident, Henry said. Said if anything happened to him, I'd need it to protect you. To make things right. The room started spinning. All this time, I'd been searching for proof of Henry's betrayal, only to find evidence of my father's trust in him, a trust that went deeper than I'd imagined. I never cashed it in, Henry continued. Couldn't bring myself to. The money's still there in a trust. For you. Linda reached across the table. We've been waiting for the right time to tell you. There is no right time. I stood up so fast my chair toppled backward. You've had this for months, watching me struggle, watching me search for answers. Because you weren't ready to hear them. Henry's composure finally cracked. You wanted someone to blame. I let you blame me because it was easier than the truth, that your father died trying to protect everyone, including me. The weight of it all crashed down on me. The note in the safe. The loans. The insurance policy. My father's final email. All pieces of a puzzle I'd forced into the wrong shape, desperate to find villains instead of seeing the complicated truth. Primekant. I stumbled backward, bumping into the china cabinet. Photos rattled. Family vacations, holidays, moments frozen in time when everything made sense. I can't be here. Casey, please. Dylan started to stand, but I was already moving. I just need. I didn't finish the sentence. Couldn't. The front door was my only escape from the suffocating weight of revelations I wasn't prepared for. Behind me, I heard Linda calling my name, Henry's heavy sigh, Dylan's footsteps. But I kept running out into the night, away from a truth that was far more painful than any lie I'd imagined. Because in the end, there were no villains in this story, just family, trying and failing to protect each other in all the wrong ways. I ended up at my parents' house, fumbling with the key in the dark. The attic seemed like the only place left to hide from the truth, or maybe to finally face it. I didn't expect to find Ryan waiting on the porch. Dylan called, he said simply. Said you might need someone. I brushed past him into the house, but he followed. The beam of my phone's flashlight caught the dust motes in the air as I climbed the attic stairs, Ryan's footsteps heavy behind me. Casey, stop. Just stop for a minute. I can't. I moved to the loose floorboard where this had all started. There has to be something else. Something that explains. Explains what? Why your father trusted his brother. Why he chose forgiveness over revenge. You don't understand, I snapped, prying up the board. The safe was still there, empty now except for dust and memories. Then help me understand. Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're the only one still fighting a war that's already over. A car pulled up outside, headlights sweeping across the attic windows. Footsteps on the porch. Then Henry's voice, Casey, don't. Ryan warned as I started toward the stairs, but I was already moving. Henry stood in the living room, holding a small box I'd never seen before. Linda told me I'd find you here. Get out. Not until you see this. He set the box on the coffee table. Your father left it with me the day before the accident. Said if anything happened, I should wait until you were ready. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside was a letter, dated the night before the crash, and a USB drive. He recorded everything, Henry said quietly. Every conversation, every decision we made together. He knew someday you'd need to understand. I plugged the drive into my laptop and suddenly Dad's voice filled the room. Casey, if you're watching this, it means things didn't work out the way Henry and I planned. I need you to know something about family. The video showed Dad in his office, looking tired but determined. Your uncle and I made mistakes. Big ones. But every decision, every risk, it was about protecting our family's future. Your future. Henry's actions might seem wrong to you now, but he was following a promise we made years ago. A promise I asked him to keep. I sank onto the couch, the weight of months of anger suddenly unbearable. Why didn't you show me this before? Because you needed to find your own way to the truth, Henry said. Just like your father did with me. He could have exposed my mistakes years ago, but he chose understanding over vengeance. Chose family. Ryan moved closer, his hand finding my shoulder. On the screen, Dad continued, the hardest part of family isn't loving each other. It's forgiving each other when love isn't enough. Henry will carry the weight of our choices forever. Don't let him carry your anger too. The video ended, leaving us in silence. Henry pulled out one final document, the insurance policy. It's yours, he said. It always was. I was just waiting for you to be ready to understand why he left it to me first. Looking at Henry now, I saw what I'd been missing. The grief etched in his face, The weight of secrets kept not out of malice but love. The same love that had driven Dad to protect him, even in death. "I don't know how to let go," I whispered. "Neither did your father at first," Henry said. "But he learned that holding on to anger only hurts the people still here." He moved toward the door, pausing. "Sunday dinners aren't the same without you." After he left, Ryan sat beside me, the box of revelations between us. "What now?" I looked at the empty safe under the floorboard, then at Dad's frozen image on the laptop screen. The truth I'd been searching for had been there all along, not in documents or bank statements, but in the complicated ways family chooses to love and protect each other. "Now," I said, closing the laptop, "I think it's time to go home." The cemetery was quiet in the early morning light. I hadn't been back since the funeral, but today felt different. Ryan waited in the car, giving me space, while I made my way to my parents' headstone with fresh flowers and the weight of understanding finally settling in my chest. "I found your note," I said softly, arranging the flowers. "Took me a while to understand what you were trying to tell me." A gentle breeze stirred the leaves overhead. In the distance, I could see Henry's car pulling up beside Ryan's. We'd planned this, one final conversation, one last piece to put in place. Henry approached slowly, carrying his own flowers. Neither of us spoke as he placed them next to mine. The morning sun caught the silver in his hair, and for the first time, I saw how much he looked like Dad in profile. "I've been thinking about what to do with the insurance money," I said finally. Henry tensed slightly. "It's yours too. I want to start a scholarship. In both your names." I turned to face him. "For families struggling with debt. Something good should come from all this." The surprise in his eyes gave way to something deeper. Understanding, maybe even pride. Jack would have liked that. "There's something else." I pulled out an envelope, the last piece of this puzzle we'd been struggling with for months. "I found this in Dad's old briefcase. It's a letter he wrote to you, never sent." Henry's hands shook as he opened it. I'd memorized the words by now. "Brother, some debts can't be measured in dollars. The greatest one I owe you is for always putting family first, even when it cost you everything. Take care of my girl. She'll understand someday." He knew, Henry whispered. All along, he knew what I was trying to do. He understood family better than either of us. I touched the headstone gently. "Sunday dinner is at 6, right?" Henry looked up, hope flickering across his face. "Linda's making pot roast. Ryan and I will be there." I paused, then added, "Uncle Henry?" "Yes. I understand now too." He nodded, unable to speak. We stood there a moment longer, the morning sun warming our backs, before he turned and walked away, leaving me with my parents and the peace I'd finally found. Back at the car, Ryan opened his door but didn't get in. "You okay?" Getting there, I looked back at the cemetery, thinking about the path that had led me here. Dad left me a roadmap, you know? In that note, in the videos, in everything he did. I just had to learn how to read it. And did you? Figure it out. I thought about Sunday dinners, about Dylan's gym sessions I'd missed, about Linda's worried calls, about Henry carrying the weight of secrets and love in equal measure, about Dad choosing forgiveness even when it wasn't easy. I took Ryan's hand, feeling its warmth against the morning chill. I think I finally understand what Dad meant about family. It's not about keeping score or settling debts. It's about choosing to love people even when it's complicated. Even when it hurts. Ryan squeezed my hand. "Your dad would be proud of you." Maybe. I smiled slightly. But I think he'd be prouder that I finally learned to let go. As we drove away, I caught one last glimpse of the headstone in the rearview mirror. The note that had started everything was still in my pocket. But it felt different now. Less like an accusation and more like a father's final lesson about love, forgiveness, and the complicated ways we protect the people who matter most. Henry's car was already gone, probably heading home to tell Linda and Dylan about the scholarship, about new beginnings, about how sometimes the best way to honor the past is to build something better from its ashes. "Ready?" Ryan asked as we turned onto the main road. I thought about Sunday dinner waiting ahead, about family, both the one I'd lost and the one I was choosing to keep, about the future stretching out before us, complicated and beautiful and full of possibilities. "Yeah," I said. "I'm ready."
The sound of shattering glass jolted me from my thoughts. I rushed to the kitchen, heart pounding, to find Ryan standing over a mess of broken dishes, his face a mask of indifference. "Sorry," he muttered, not meeting my eyes. "I'll clean it up." I bit back a sigh. "Don't bother, I'll do it." As I swept up the shards, I couldn't help but wonder, when my husband had become a stranger in our own home, the Ryan I married would have been mortified, apologizing profusely and insisting on cleaning up his own mess. This Ryan? He shuffled off to his study without another word. "Mom?" Emily's voice called from upstairs. "Everything okay down there?" "Fine, honey," I called back, forcing cheerfulness into my voice. "Just a little accident." I heard her footsteps on the stairs, and soon my 17-year-old daughter appeared in the doorway, eyebrows raised. "Dad?" I nodded, and she rolled her eyes. "Figures. He's been so weird lately." "He's just stressed with work," I said, the lie tasting bitter on my tongue. "How's that college essay coming along?" Emily groaned. "Don't remind me. I swear, if I have to write one more draft about my most significant challenge, I'm going to scream." I chuckled, grateful for the distraction. "Well, you could always write about living with your father. That's certainly a challenge these days." "Mom," Emily's eyes widened, but I caught the hint of a smile. "I'm kidding," I said, though we both knew I wasn't entirely. "Why don't you take a break? We could watch a movie or something." Emily's face fell. "Can't. I promised Dad I'd help him organize his office tonight." My heart sank. "Oh, I didn't realize." "Yeah, he asked me yesterday. Said he had some old papers he needed to sort through." She shrugged. "Sorry, Mom, maybe tomorrow?" I forced a smile. "Of course. Have fun with your dad." As Emily disappeared upstairs, I leaned against the counter, fighting back tears. When had I become the outsider in my own family? The doorbell rang, startling me from my pity party. I wiped my eyes and went to answer it, surprised to find my brother Mark on the other side. "Hey, sis," he said, his easy grin fading as he took in my appearance. "Whoa, you okay?" I stepped aside to let him in. "I'm fine, just a long day. What brings you by?" Mark held up a bottle of wine. "Thought we could use a drink. Rough week at the firm, and I figured my favorite sister could use some company." I raised an eyebrow. "I'm your only sister." "Exactly why you're my favorite." He winked, following me to the kitchen. "Where's the rest of the family?" I busied myself finding wine glasses. "Emily's helping Ryan in his office. They're bonding, I guess." Mark's silence spoke volumes. When I turned back, his eyes were full of concern. "Lisa, what's really going on?" I opened my mouth to brush him off, but the words caught in my throat. Instead, I found myself sinking into a chair, the weight of the past few months crashing down on me. "I don't know, Mark," I whispered. It's like I'm living with strangers. Ryan's always working late or locked in his office. Emily's so focused on college applications, she barely has time for me. I feel so alone." Mark reached across the table, squeezing my hand. "Hey, you're not alone, okay? You've got me. Always." I managed a weak smile. "Thanks, I can't shake this feeling that something's wrong, really wrong." As if on cue, we heard a crash from upstairs, followed by raised voices. I jumped to my feet, but Mark beat me to the stairs. We rushed up to find Emily standing in the hallway, her face pale. "Emily," I asked, my heart racing, "what happened?" She looked at me, her eyes wide with shock. "Mom, I think you need to see this." In her trembling hand was a crumpled letter, the handwriting unfamiliar and distinctly feminine. As I took it from her, my world tilted on its axis. "Dear Ryan," it began, "I can't wait to see you again. These stolen moments are never enough." I looked up at Mark, my vision blurring with tears. "Oh God," I whispered. "What am I going to do?" I couldn't sleep that night. The letter burned in my mind, its words etched into my memory like a cruel tattoo. As the first light of dawn crept through our bedroom window, I turned to look at Ryan. He slept peacefully, oblivious to the storm raging inside me. How long had it been going on? The question gnawed at me as I slipped out of bed, careful not to wake him. In the kitchen, I poured myself a cup of coffee, my hands shaking slightly as I replayed the events of the past few months in my mind, the late nights at the office, the secretive phone calls, the sudden interest in organizing his workspace. It all made sickening sense now. "Mom?" Emily's voice startled me. She stood in the doorway, her eyes puffy from a sleepless night. "Are you okay?" I forced a smile. "I'm fine, sweetie, just thinking." She hesitated, then asked, "What are you going to do?" The question hung in the air between us. What was I going to do? I had no idea. I don't know yet, I admitted. But we'll figure it out together, okay? Emily nodded, but I could see the doubt in her eyes. She was too young to be dealing with this mess. The sound of Ryan's footsteps on the stairs sent a jolt of panic through me. I wasn't ready to face him yet. "Morning," he mumbled, heading straight for the coffee pot. He didn't even look at me. I watched him, searching for any sign of guilt or remorse. There was nothing, just the same distant, distracted expression he'd worn for months. "Ryan," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "We need to talk." He glanced up, frowning. "Can it wait? I've got an early meeting." The casual dismissal ignited a spark of anger in my chest. "No, it can't wait. This is important." Emily slipped out of the room, leaving us alone. Ryan sighed, leaning against the counter. "What is it, Lisa?" I took a deep breath. "I know about the letter." For a moment, confusion flickered across his face. Then I saw it. A flash of panic in his eyes before he schooled his features into a neutral expression. "What letter?" he asked, but his voice lacked conviction. "Don't," I said, my tone sharp. "Don't lie to me, Ryan. Not anymore." He set down his coffee cup, running a hand through his hair. "Lisa, I can explain." "Explain what?" I interrupted, my voice rising. "Explain how you've been sneaking around behind my back, how you've been lying to me, to our daughter." Ryan's face hardened. "It's not what you think," I laughed bitterly. "Really?" "Because I think it's exactly what I think. Who is she, Ryan? An old girlfriend? A coworker?" He remained silent, his jaw clenched. The lack of denial was all the confirmation I needed. "How long?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Ryan's shoulders sagged. "Lisa, please." "How long?" He met my gaze, finally. "A few months." The words hit me like a physical blow. Months. While I'd been worrying about our marriage, planning date nights, trying to reconnect, he'd been with someone else. "I want you out," I said, surprised by the calm in my voice. Ryan's eyes widened. "What?" "You heard me. I want you out of this house. Today." He shook his head. "Lisa, be reasonable. We can work this out, for Emily's sake. Don't you dare use our daughter as an excuse," I hissed. "You should have thought about her before you decided to cheat." The sound of a car door slamming outside made us both jump. Through the window, I saw a familiar figure striding up our driveway. "Oh, perfect timing," I muttered. Ryan frowned. "Who?" The front door burst open and Mark's voice boomed through the house. "Lisa? You here?" He appeared in the kitchen doorway, taking in the scene before him. His eyes narrowed as they landed on Ryan. "Everything okay?" Mark asked, his tone deceptively casual. I looked at my brother, then back at my husband. The tension in the room was palpable. "No," I said finally. "No, it's not okay, but it will be." I turned to Ryan, my decision made. "Pack your bags. You have an hour." As Ryan stormed out of the kitchen, I felt a strange sense of calm wash over me. The worst had happened, and I was still standing. With Mark by my side and Emily upstairs, I knew I could face whatever came next. But as I heard Ryan's angry footsteps overhead, a new worry gnawed at me. What else didn't I know? And how much worse could this get? The house felt emptier than ever after Ryan left. Emily retreated to her room, and I found myself pacing the living room, unable to settle. Mark watched me from the couch, his brow furrowed with concern. "Lisa, sit down," he said gently. "You're making me dizzy." I collapsed into an armchair, burying my face in my hands. "What am I going to do, Mark?" He leaned forward, his voice firm. "You're going to survive this, and then you're going to thrive." I looked up at him, managing a weak smile. "You sound so sure." "Because I am," he replied. "You're the strongest person I know, sis, and you've got me in your corner." A knock at the door interrupted us. I froze, panic rising in my chest. What if it's Ryan? Mark stood, his expression hardening. "Then I'll handle it." But when he opened the door, it wasn't Ryan standing there. It was Donna, Ryan's mother, her face a mask of concern that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Lisa, dear," she cooed, pushing past Mark. "I just heard what happened. Are you all right?" I stiffened as she approached, her perfume cloying in the air between us. "I'm fine, Donna. Thank you for your concern," she tsked, shaking her head. "Such a shame. I always worried Ryan might stray. He needs a firmer hand, you know." Mark's eyes narrowed. "What's that supposed to mean?" Donna waved a dismissive hand. "Oh, nothing, dear. I just think perhaps if Lisa had been more attentive." "Don't you dare," I hissed, rising to my feet. "Don't you dare try to blame this on me." Donna's eyes widened in mock innocence. "I'm not blaming anyone, dear. These things happen. Maybe if you two try counseling. Counseling? I laughed bitterly. Donna, your son has been cheating on me for months. Counseling isn't going to fix this. A flicker of something, triumph, flashed across Donna's face before she schooled her features back into a sympathetic mask. Months? Oh my, I had no idea it had been going on that long. Mark stepped forward, his lawyer instincts kicking in. Donna, what exactly do you know about this? She hesitated, and in that moment I saw the truth. The realization hit me like a punch to the gut. You knew, I whispered. You've known all along, haven't you? Donna's silence was all the confirmation I needed. Rage boiled up inside me, hot and fierce. How long? I demanded. How long have you known about your son's affair? She lifted her chin, defiance replacing the fake sympathy. A while, she admitted. But really, Lisa, what did you expect? Ryan's a successful man. He needs someone who can keep up with him, not hold him back. Mark's hand on my arm was the only thing that kept me from lunging at her. I think you should leave, he said, his voice dangerously low. Donna sniffed, gathering her purse. Fine, but don't come crying to me when this all falls apart. I warned Ryan you weren't good enough for him years ago. As the door slammed behind her, I sagged against Mark, the fight draining out of me. She knew, I repeated, my voice hollow. All this time, she knew. Mark guided me back to the couch, his arm around my shoulders. Lisa, listen to me. This isn't your fault. Ryan and Donna, they're the ones in the wrong here. I nodded, but doubt gnawed at me. Had I really been so blind, so inadequate as a wife that my own mother-in-law thought I deserved this? What do I do now? I asked, hating how small my voice sounded. Mark squeezed my hand. Now? Now we fight back. We make sure Ryan doesn't get away with this, and we show Donna that you're a hell of a lot stronger than she thinks. As I looked at my brother, determination replacing the hurt in his eyes, I felt a spark of something I hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Okay, I said, straightening my shoulders. Where do we start? Mark grinned, a hint of mischief in his expression. Well, first things first. We need to make sure Ryan doesn't have access to your finances. And then we start building your case. As we bent our heads together, planning our next move, I realized that this was far from over. But for the first time since finding that letter, I felt ready to face whatever came next. With Mark by my side and the truth finally out in the open, I was done being the victim. It was time to take control of my life again, no matter who tried to stand in my way. The next morning, I woke with a sense of purpose I hadn't felt in months. Mark's words echoed in my mind. We fight back. But first, I needed answers. I found myself outside Donna's house, my hands shaking as I rang the doorbell. When she answered, her surprise quickly morphed into a smug smile. Lisa, dear, what an unexpected pleasure. I pushed past her into the foyer. Cut the act, Donna. We need to talk. She sighed dramatically, leading me to the living room. I suppose we do. Tea? No, I snapped. I want the truth. All of it. Donna settled into an armchair, smoothing her skirt. The truth? Well, that's a loaded term, isn't it? I clenched my fists, fighting to keep my voice steady. How long have you known about Ryan's affair? She examined her manicure, her casual demeanor infuriating. Oh, I suppose it's been, 8 months now? The room spun. 8 months. While I'd been planning our anniversary dinner, she'd known my marriage was a lie. Why? I choked out. Why didn't you tell me? Donna's eyes hardened. Because, Lisa, I hoped Ryan would come to his senses, that he'd realize what a mistake he'd made marrying you and leave on his own. Her words hit like a physical blow. What did I ever do to make you hate me so much? She laughed, a cold, brittle sound. Oh, Lisa, it's not about hate, it's about what's best for my son. And you? You were never good enough for him. Rage boiled up inside me. Not good enough. I gave up my career for him. I raised our daughter while he chased promotions. I stood by him through everything. And that's exactly the problem, Donna sneered. You made him weak, complacent. Ryan needs a woman who challenges him, pushes him to be better, not some housewife content to live in his shadow. I reeled back as if slapped. Is that what you think of me? That I'm just some trophy wife? Donna stood, her voice dripping with disdain. Please, we both know Ryan married you because you got pregnant. He felt obligated. But obligation isn't love, dear. Something inside me snapped. Before I knew what I was doing, my hand connected with Donna's cheek, the crack echoing in the silent room. She stumbled back, shock written across her face. How dare you? No, I snarled. How dare you? You don't know the first thing about me or my marriage, and you sure as hell don't get to decide what's best for Ryan. Donna's eyes narrowed. Be careful, Lisa. You have no idea what I'm capable of. Is that a threat? She smiled, all pretense of civility gone. Consider it a warning. If you try to take Ryan for everything he's worth in this divorce, I'll make sure you regret it. I stepped closer, my voice low and dangerous. Bring it on, Donna, because I'm done being the dutiful wife and daughter-in-law. You want to fight? You've got one. As I stormed out of the house, my phone buzzed. A text from Ryan. We need to talk. About Emily. My blood ran cold. Emily, in all the chaos, I'd almost forgotten how this was affecting our daughter. I called Mark as I got in the car. I need your help, I said when he answered. Things just got a lot more complicated. What happened? He asked, concern evident in his voice. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what was to come. Donna knows more than she's letting on, and now Ryan wants to talk about Emily. I think he might try to take her from me. Mark's voice hardened. Not if I've anything to say about it. Come to my office. We'll figure this out. As I drove, my mind raced. I'd thought discovering Ryan's affair was the worst thing that could happen. But now, faced with the possibility of losing my daughter, I realized the real fight was just beginning. One thing was certain. I wasn't going down without a fight. Ryan, Donna, and anyone else who stood in my way were about to learn just how strong I could be. My hands shook as I pulled into our driveway. Ryan's car was already there, and I could see his silhouette through the living room window. Taking a deep breath, I steeled myself for the confrontation ahead. As I walked in, Ryan stood up from the couch, his face a mask of guilt and defiance. Lisa, we need to talk. You're damn right we do, I snapped, tossing my purse aside. Let's start with why you've been lying to me for over a year. He flinched, but held his ground. It's not that simple. Really? I laughed bitterly. Because from where I'm standing, it's pretty straightforward. You cheated, Ryan. You betrayed our marriage, our family. Ryan ran a hand through his hair, frustration evident in his voice. I never meant for it to happen. It just did. Oh, please, I scoffed. Things don't just happen, Ryan. You made a choice. Every time you lied, every time you snuck around behind my back, those were choices. He slumped back onto the couch, suddenly looking older than his years. You're right. I screwed up. But Lisa, you have to understand, our marriage hasn't been right for a long time. Anger flared hot in my chest. So that makes it okay? Because we hit a rough patch, you get to throw away 20 years of marriage? That's not what I'm saying. Ryan stood again, pacing the room. I felt trapped, okay? Like I was suffocating in this life we built. I reeled back as if slapped. Trapped? By me? By our daughter? He shook his head vehemently. No, not by you. By expectations. The pressure to be the perfect husband, father, provider. I lost myself somewhere along the way. And you found yourself in another woman's bed? The words tasted like acid on my tongue. Ryan's shoulders sagged. I know it sounds cliché, but with her, I felt alive again, seen. Something inside me shattered at his words. All the anger drained away, leaving only a hollow ache. And I made you feel, what? Dead? Invisible? He reached for me, but I stepped back. Lisa, please, I never meant to hurt you. A bitter laugh escaped me. Well, congratulations, Ryan. You failed spectacularly at that. Silence stretched between us, heavy with unspoken words and broken promises. Finally, I asked the question that had been burning inside me since I found that letter. Do you love her? Ryan's hesitation was all the answer I needed. Tears stung my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. I want a separation, I said, my voice surprisingly steady. I need time to figure out what I want, and clearly, so do you. He nodded slowly. I understand. But Lisa, what about Emily? We need to think about her in all this. The mention of our daughter reignited my anger. Oh, now you're concerned about Emily? Where was that concern when you were sneaking around behind our backs? Ryan's face hardened. Don't you dare imply I don't care about our daughter. Everything I've done has been for this family. I laughed incredulously. Everything, including destroying our marriage? He stepped closer, his voice low and intense. I made mistakes, Lisa. I own that, but I won't let you use Emily as a weapon in this. A chill ran down my spine at his words. What are you saying, Ryan? His eyes met mine, a challenge in their depths. I'm saying that if you try to keep me from my daughter, I'll fight you every step of the way, and you know I have the resources to do it." The threat hung in the air between us, transforming the man I once loved into a stranger. In that moment, I realized the true battle was just beginning. "Get out," I whispered, my voice shaking with rage and fear. "Get out of this house right now." As Ryan gathered his things, a cold determination settled over me. He wanted a fight? Fine, I'd give him one he'd never forget. The moment the door closed behind him, I pulled out my phone and dialed Mark's number. "I need your help," I said when he answered. "It's time to go to war." Mark's office felt like a war room as we pored over documents and legal strategies. My brother's face was grim as he laid out our options. "Lisa, I won't sugarcoat this," he said, leaning back in his chair. "Ryan's got resources, and from what you've told me about Donna, she'll be backing him all the way. This could get ugly." I nodded, steeling myself. "I'm ready. What's our first move?" Mark slid a folder across the desk. "We need to protect your assets, joint accounts, property, everything. Ryan's already shown he's willing to play dirty. We can't give him any ammunition." As I flipped through the papers, a knot formed in my stomach. Our entire life together, reduced to cold, hard numbers. "What about Emily?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Mark's expression softened. "That's where it gets tricky. Given Emily's age, the court will take her preferences into account. But Ryan might try to manipulate her, especially with Donna in his corner." Anger flared hot in my chest. "He wouldn't dare use our daughter as a pawn." "Wouldn't he?" Mark raised an eyebrow. "Lisa, you need to be prepared for anything. Ryan's not the man you thought he was." The truth of his words hit me like a physical blow. I slumped in my chair, suddenly exhausted. "How did we get here, Mark? How did I not see this coming?" He reached across the desk, squeezing my hand. "This isn't your fault. Ryan made his choices. Now we make ours." A knock at the door interrupted us. Mark's assistant poked her head in, looking apologetic. "I'm sorry to interrupt, but there's someone here to see Lisa. Says it's urgent." My heart raced as I followed her to the lobby. Had Ryan tracked me down? But it wasn't my soon-to-be ex-husband waiting for me. It was Donna. She stood as I approached, her face a mask of concern that didn't reach her eyes. "Lisa, dear, we need to talk." I crossed my arms, my voice ice-cold. "I think we've said all we need to say to each other, Donna." She glanced around the office, lowering her voice. "Not here. This is delicate. It's about Emily." Fear gripped me. "What about Emily?" Donna's eyes gleamed with a predatory light. "Let's just say I have some information that could make things very difficult for you in the custody battle. Unless, of course, you're willing to be reasonable about the divorce settlement." White-hot rage coursed through me. "Are you blackmailing me?" She smiled, all pretense of warmth gone. "I prefer to think of it as negotiating. Ryan's willing to be generous, Lisa. Don't throw that away out of spite." I stepped closer, my voice low and dangerous. "Listen carefully, Donna. I don't know what game you're playing, but if you think for 1 second that I'll let you or Ryan use my daughter as a bargaining chip, you're sorely mistaken." Donna's smile never wavered. "Oh, Lisa, you really don't understand what you're up against, do you? This isn't just about the divorce. This is about protecting my son's future, and I'll do whatever it takes to ensure that future is secure." As she turned to leave, she paused, her parting shot hitting me like a physical blow. "By the way, have you asked Emily about her college applications lately? You might find her choices illuminating." I stood rooted to the spot, my mind reeling. What did Donna know that I didn't? And how had I become so disconnected from my own daughter that I might have missed something crucial? Mark found me there, still staring at the door long after Donna had gone. "Lisa, what happened?" I turned to him, my voice shaking. "We need to talk to Emily, now." As we rushed out of the office, I felt like I was standing on the edge of a precipice. Everything I thought I knew about my life, my family, was crumbling beneath my feet. And the worst part? I had a sinking feeling that the ground had started to give way long before I ever noticed the cracks. My heart raced as Mark and I pulled into the driveway. Emily's car was there, but so was Ryan's. This wasn't how I'd planned for this to go down. "You ready for this?" Mark asked, his hand on my shoulder. I took a deep breath. "As I'll ever be." The moment we stepped inside, I knew something was wrong. The air was thick with tension, and I could hear muffled voices from the kitchen. As we rounded the corner, the scene before me stopped me cold. Ryan and Emily sat at the table, heads bent close together. A stack of papers lay between them. College brochures, I realized with a jolt, but not the ones we'd been looking at together. They both looked up as we entered, guilt flashing across Emily's face before it hardened into defiance. "Mom," she said, her voice steady. "We need to talk." Ryan stood, his posture defensive. "Lisa, I can explain." "Explain what?" I snapped, fury rising. "How you're trying to manipulate our daughter behind my back." Emily slammed her hand on the table. "He's not manipulating me." "God, Mom, why do you always have to make everything about you?" Her words hit me like a physical blow. I staggered back, Mark's steadying hand on my elbow. "Emily," he said, his lawyer voice kicking in, "why don't you tell us what's going on?" She glared at him. "This is family business, Uncle Mark. No offense, but you don't get a say." Ryan smirked, and I wanted to slap the smugness right off his face. "You heard her, Mark. This is between us and our daughter." I found my voice again. "Our daughter? That's rich, coming from the man who's been lying to her for over a year." Emily's eyes widened. "What are you talking about?" The room fell silent. Ryan's face drained of color as he realized what I'd done. "You didn't tell her," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "You've been pushing her to choose sides, and you didn't even have the decency to tell her why." Emily looked between us, confusion giving way to anger. "Tell me what, Dad?" Ryan reached for her, but she jerked away. "Emily, sweetheart, it's complicated." "No," I cut in. "It's not complicated at all. Your father has been having an affair, Emily, for over a year." The words hung in the air, heavy and final. Emily's face crumpled, tears welling in her eyes. "Is it true?" she whispered. Ryan's shoulders sagged. "Yes," he admitted, "but Emily, you have to understand." She was on her feet in an instant, shoving past him. "Understand what? That you're a liar? That this whole time you've been... God, I can't even look at you." As she ran from the room, I moved to follow, but Mark held me back. "Give her a minute," he murmured. Ryan turned to me, his eyes blazing. "How could you do that? We were supposed to tell her together." I laughed bitterly. "Like you told me together? Face it, Ryan, you never planned on coming clean. You just wanted to turn her against me so you could win the divorce." He flinched. "That's not true. I love Emily. I was trying to protect her." "Protect her?" I scoffed. "By lying? By using her as a pawn in your sick game?" Mark stepped between us. "All right, that's enough. Ryan, I think it's time you left." For a moment I thought Ryan might argue, but then his shoulders slumped, and he nodded. As he gathered his things, I felt a strange mix of triumph and despair. The front door slammed, and suddenly the house felt too quiet. I sank into a chair, my legs no longer able to support me. "What have I done?" I whispered. Mark squeezed my shoulder. "You told the truth, Lisa. It was bound to come out eventually." I nodded, but the victory felt hollow. Because upstairs, my daughter was crying. And for the first time in her life, I didn't know how to comfort her. As I climbed the stairs to Emily's room, I realized that winning the battle might have cost me the war. And I had no idea how to make things right again. 6 months after that fateful day in the kitchen, I stood in front of my easel, brush in hand, staring at the canvas before me. The painting was almost finished, a swirling landscape of blues and purples with a single, defiant streak of gold cutting through the center. "It's beautiful, Mom," Emily said from the doorway of my new studio apartment. I turned, smiling at my daughter. The past few months had been hard on both of us, but we'd weathered the storm together. "Thanks, sweetie. How was your campus tour?" Emily's eyes lit up as she launched into a detailed description of her visit to her top-choice college. As I listened, I marveled at her resilience, her ability to look forward despite everything that had happened. A knock at the door interrupted us. Emily tensed, and I squeezed her shoulder reassuringly before going to answer it. Ryan stood in the hallway, looking uncomfortable. "Lisa, I need to talk to you." I glanced back at Emily, who nodded slightly. "It's okay, Mom. I'll wait in the studio." As she disappeared into the other room, I stepped into the hall, closing the door behind me. "What is it, Ryan?" He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture so familiar it made my heart ache. "I've been doing a lot of thinking. About us, about what happened. I made a huge mistake, Lisa. I want to make things right." I stared at him, searching for any trace of the man I'd fallen in love with all those years ago. "It's too late for that, Ryan. You know that." He nodded, his shoulders slumping. I know, I miss our family, I miss you. For a moment, I felt a flicker of the old longing, but then I thought of the lies, the betrayal, the pain he'd caused, not just me, but our daughter. I'm sorry, Ryan, but we can't go back. We can only move forward. As if on cue, my phone buzzed. A text from Mark. Court date set. You ready for this? I looked back at Ryan, feeling a surge of strength. The divorce will be final next month. After that, we'll work out a schedule for Emily, but it's over. He opened his mouth to argue, but something in my expression stopped him. Finally, he nodded. I understand. Take care of yourself, Lisa. As he walked away, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. I'd faced my greatest fear, the end of my marriage, and come out stronger on the other side. Back inside, I found Emily examining my painting. You okay, Mom? She asked, concern etched on her face. I pulled her into a hug. I'm more than okay, sweetheart. I'm free. We spent the rest of the afternoon planning her college applications, laughing and dreaming about the future. As the sun began to set, casting a golden glow across the room, Emily grew quiet. Mom, she said, her voice small. I'm sorry I didn't tell you about Dad. I was so confused and angry, and I didn't know how to handle it. I cupped her face in my hands, looking into eyes so like my own. Oh, honey, you have nothing to be sorry for. We both got hurt, but we're going to be okay, more than okay. She smiled, tears glistening in her eyes. I love you, Mom. I love you too, baby girl. As Emily left for her study group, I turned back to my painting. With a few final brushstrokes, I added another streak of gold, intertwining with the first. It wasn't perfect, but it was beautiful in its own way, just like our new life. My phone buzzed again. This time, it was a text from an old friend, asking if I'd like to grab coffee sometime. I smiled, feeling a flutter of excitement I hadn't experienced in years. Standing there in my studio, surrounded by the art I'd rediscovered and the life I was rebuilding, I realized something profound. The end of my marriage wasn't the end of my story. It was just the beginning of a new chapter, one filled with possibility, strength, and most importantly, hope. As I replied to the text with a simple, I'd love to, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. Whatever came next, I was ready to face it, not as Ryan's wife or Emily's mother, but as Lisa, strong, resilient, and finally truly free.
My name is Cheryl Whitman, and I've spent my entire life being invisible. Tonight was supposed to change that. I stood alone in the corner of the gallery, my fingers wrapped tightly around a glass of cheap champagne. The white walls were adorned with my restored paintings, each one a testament to countless hours of painstaking work. But the room was nearly empty, save for a few wandering art enthusiasts who barely glanced my way. My phone buzzed. Another notification. I unlocked the screen to see my family's group chat exploding with congratulations and heart emojis. For a split second, my heart leapt. Had they remembered? But no. It was another post about Jasper's latest touchdown. I scrolled through the messages, my stomach sinking with each one. Way to go, champ. Dad wrote. That's our boy. Mom chimed in. Even Felix, Jasper's twin, had posted a video of himself cheering from the stands. I took a long swig of champagne, wincing at its bitterness. Of course they'd forgotten. Why would tonight be any different? Excuse me, a voice said, startling me from my thoughts. Are you the artist? I turned to see an elderly woman peering at me through thick glasses. Oh, not exactly. I'm the restorer. I bring old paintings back to life. Fascinating, she said, her eyes lighting up. It must take incredible skill. I smiled, warmth spreading through my chest. It does. Each piece is like a puzzle, figuring out the original artist's technique, matching colors perfectly. Cheryl? My phone lit up with an incoming video call. Mom's face appeared on the screen, Jasper's arm slung around her shoulder. Oh, good, you picked up. We wanted to share the moment with you. Jasper just scored the winning touchdown. I forced a smile. That's great, Mom. Congratulations, Jasper. Thanks, sis. Jasper's grin was wide and carefree. Wish you could have been here. I bit back a retort. Of course, I couldn't be there. I was at my own event, the one I told them about weeks ago. So, what are you up to tonight? Mom asked, her tone casual. The elderly woman was still standing nearby, listening curiously. I took a deep breath. Actually, Mom, I'm at my art exhibit. The one I've been working on for months. Remember? There was a pause. Mom's smile faltered for just a moment.
Oh,
Right, of course. That's tonight. Yes, Mom. Tonight. Well, that's wonderful, dear, she said, her voice overly bright. I'm sure it's lovely. We'll have to stop by next time. Next time? I echoed, my voice hollow. Anyway, we should go. There's a celebration dinner for Jasper. Love you. The call ended abruptly. I stared at the blank screen, fighting back tears. Family can be difficult, the elderly woman said softly. I let out a bitter laugh. You have no idea. She patted my arm gently. Don't let their blindness dim your light, dear. Your work is extraordinary. As she walked away, I downed the rest of my champagne. The bubbles burned my throat, but it was nothing compared to the ache in my chest. I looked around the gallery, at the fruits of my labor that my own family couldn't be bothered to see. In that moment, something inside me snapped. I was done being the forgotten daughter, the invisible sister. If they couldn't see me, I'd make damn sure they felt my absence. I pulled out my phone and opened the family chat. My thumbs hovered over the keys for just a moment before I typed. Congratulations, Jasper. Hope you all enjoy the celebration.
don't worry about me.
I won't be around to disappoint you anymore. With a deep breath, I hit send and then blocked every number. It was time to write my own story, one where I was finally the main character. The next morning, I woke with a pounding headache and a hollow feeling in my chest. My phone lay silent on the nightstand, a stark reminder of my impulsive decision. Part of me wanted to take it all back, to apologize and pretend everything was fine. But I knew I couldn't. Not this time. I dragged myself out of bed and headed to the museum, hoping work would provide a much-needed distraction. The quiet halls and familiar scent of oil paints welcomed me like an old friend. I lost myself in the delicate work of restoring a faded landscape, carefully bringing each brushstroke back to life. Excuse me, a voice interrupted my concentration. I was told I could find Cheryl Whitman here. I looked up to see a man with tousled dark hair and warm brown eyes. He held a guitar case in one hand and a crumpled flyer in the other. That's me, I said, setting down my brush. Can I help you? He grinned, extending his hand. I'm Elliot.
I saw your exhibit last night.
It was incredible. My heart skipped a beat. Someone had actually noticed. You were there? I didn't see you. I came late, he admitted. But I couldn't stop thinking about your work. The way you breathe new life into forgotten masterpieces. It's like magic. I felt a blush creeping up my cheeks. Thank you. That means a lot. Elliot's eyes sparkled with genuine enthusiasm. Your art speaks volumes. It's like you're restoring more than just the paintings. For a moment, I was speechless. No one had ever described my work that way before. Thank you, I managed. That's exactly what I try to do. He nodded, then gestured to his guitar case. I'm a musician myself. I was wondering if you'd be interested in collaborating on a project. Your visual art, my music, I think we could create something really special. I hesitated. Collaborating with a stranger seemed risky, especially given my current emotional state. But there was something about Elliot's earnest expression that made me want to trust him. I'd like that, I found myself saying. Why don't we grab coffee and discuss it? As we sat in a nearby cafe, Elliot's passion for his craft was infectious. He spoke of melodies and harmonies the way I thought about color and texture. For the first time in years, I felt truly seen and understood. So, what inspired you to become an art restorer? Elliot asked, sipping his latte. I paused, memories of childhood disappointments flooding back. I've always loved bringing beauty back into the world, I said carefully. Sometimes things get overlooked or forgotten, but that doesn't mean they're not valuable. Elliot's gaze softened. Sounds like there's a story there. I took a deep breath, surprised to find myself opening up. My family, they've never really understood my work. Or me, for that matter. Last night was supposed to be my big moment, but they couldn't even be bothered to show up. That must have hurt, Elliot said gently. I nodded, blinking back unexpected tears. It did. But you know what? I'm done letting their opinions define me. I blocked them all last night. It's time I focus on my own happiness. Elliot reached across the table, squeezing my hand. Good for you. It takes courage to stand up for yourself like that. His touch sent a jolt of electricity through me. I looked into his eyes and saw not pity, but admiration and understanding. In that moment, I felt a spark of something I hadn't experienced in a long time. Hope. As we continued talking, making plans for our collaboration, I realized that this chance meeting might be the beginning of something truly special. For the first time in years, I felt seen, appreciated, and excited about the future. Walking home that evening, I felt lighter than I had in ages. My family's absence still stung, but it no longer felt like a gaping wound. Instead, I was filled with a quiet determination. I would build a life filled with people who truly valued me, starting with Elliot. I smiled to myself, thinking of the blank canvas waiting in my studio. It was time to start painting my own masterpiece. 6 months flew by in a whirlwind of creativity and newfound happiness. Elliot and I threw ourselves into our collaboration, his music breathing life into my restored paintings in ways I never imagined possible. We'd grown close, our relationship blossoming from artistic partners to something much deeper. But reality had a way of creeping in. One chilly autumn morning, I sat at our tiny kitchen table, staring at a pile of unpaid bills. Elliot walked in, his hair tousled from sleep. "Morning beautiful," he said, kissing the top of my head. "What's wrong?" I sighed, pushing the papers towards him. "We're barely scraping by, Elliot. The museum cut my hours again and your gigs." He nodded, understanding. "I know. We'll figure it out, Cheryl. We always do." I wanted to believe him, but doubt gnawed at me. As if on cue, my phone buzzed with a notification. Against my better judgment, I checked it. It was an Instagram post from Felix. My breath caught as I saw him grinning beside a shiny new sports car, my parents beaming proudly in the background. The caption read, "Thanks for the early birthday present, Mom and Dad. You're the best." I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. They bought Felix a car for his birthday. I told Elliot, trying to mask my hurt. Meanwhile, we can barely afford groceries. Elliot's face darkened. "That's not fair, Cheryl. You work just as hard as your brothers." "Harder," I muttered. "But it doesn't matter. Nothing I do will ever be good enough for them." Elliot pulled me into a hug. "You're more than good enough. Your family just can't see it." I clung to him, fighting back tears. I thought cutting them off would make it easier. But sometimes, I still wish they could see me. Really see me. "I see you," Elliot said softly. "And I love every part of you." His words warmed my heart, but the ache remained. I pulled away, determination setting in. I need to confront them, once and for all. Elliot looked concerned. "Are you sure? You don't owe them anything." "I owe it to myself," I said firmly. "I can't move forward until I face this." He nodded, understanding. "Do you want me to come with you?" I shook my head. "No, this is something I need to do alone." The drive to my parents' house felt surreal. I hadn't been here in months, not since that disastrous night at the gallery. As I pulled into the driveway, memories flooded back. Years of feeling invisible, of striving for approval that never came. I took a deep breath and rang the doorbell. My mother answered, her surprise evident. "Cheryl, what are you doing here?" "We need to talk, Mom," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. She hesitated, then stepped aside to let me in. Dad was in the living room, looking up from his newspaper with a frown. "What's this about?" he asked. I stood tall, facing them both. "It's about how you've treated me my entire life. How you've always favored Jasper and Felix, no matter what I accomplished." Mom's face hardened. "That's ridiculous. We love all our children equally. Do you?" I challenged. "Then why can't you support my dreams the way you support theirs? Why do they get lavish gifts while I struggle to make ends meet?" Dad's frown deepened. "Your brothers have practical careers, Cheryl. We're just trying to set you up for success." By tearing me down? I shot back. By dismissing everything I'm passionate about? We just want what's best for you, Mom insisted. That Elliot, he can't provide for you the way a husband should. Anger flared in my chest. Elliot sees me for who I am. He supports my dreams. That's worth more than any amount of money. You need someone who can support you, not another artist, Mom remarked coldly. Something inside me snapped. No, what I need is parents who love me unconditionally, who celebrate my accomplishments instead of constantly comparing me to my brothers. But I see now that I'll never have that from you. I turned to leave, my heart pounding. At the door, I paused, looking back at their stunned faces. I'm done trying to earn your approval. From now on, I'm living for myself. As I walked out, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. The road ahead might be uncertain, but for the first time in my life, I was truly free. I drove home from my parents' house in a daze, my hands shaking on the steering wheel. The confrontation had left me emotionally raw, but underneath the pain, I felt a glimmer of something new. Freedom. Elliot was waiting for me when I got home, his face etched with concern. How did it go? I collapsed into his arms, letting out a shuddering breath. It was awful. And liberating. I told him everything, Elliot. How I've felt invisible my whole life, how they've always favored the twins. He stroked my hair gently. I'm proud of you, Cheryl. That took guts. I pulled back, wiping my eyes. They didn't even try to understand. Mom actually said I need someone who can support me, not another artist. Elliot's jaw clenched. That's ridiculous. We support each other in ways that matter. I know, I said, squeezing his hand. I told them I'm done trying to earn their approval. From now on, we're living for us. A slow smile spread across Elliot's face. I liked the sound of that. Over the next few weeks, we threw ourselves into our work with renewed passion. Elliot landed a regular gig at a trendy downtown bar, while I poured my emotions into a series of original paintings. It felt like we were finally gaining momentum. But just as things were looking up, reality came crashing down again. I was at the museum, carefully restoring a delicate watercolor, when my boss approached with a grim expression. Cheryl, can I speak with you in my office? My stomach dropped as I followed her. She closed the door behind us, her voice gentle but firm. I'm sorry, but we're going to have to let you go. Budget cuts, you understand. I nodded numbly, barely hearing her reassurances about references and severance pay. As I packed at my desk, my phone buzzed with a text from Jasper. Hey sis, guess what? Got promoted to head surgeon. Mom and Dad are throwing a huge party next week. You should come. I stared at the message, a bitter laugh escaping my lips. Of course. Another celebration I wasn't invited to, another reminder of the golden child I could never be. When I got home, Elliot was pacing the living room, his face pale. Cheryl, we need to talk. What's wrong? I asked, dread settling in my stomach. He ran a hand through his hair. The bar owner called. They're closing down. I'm out of a job. We stood in silence, the weight of our situation crushing down on us. No jobs, mounting bills, and a family that couldn't care less. What are we going to do? I whispered. Elliot pulled me close. We'll figure it out. We always do, remember? But as the days wore on, our optimism began to fade. We scoured job listings, took on freelance gigs, anything to make ends meet. I even swallowed my pride and called my parents, hoping they might offer some help. I'm sorry, Cheryl, my father said, his voice cold. But you made your choice. You can't expect us to bail you out now. I hung up, fighting back tears of frustration. That night, as Elliot and I sat at our kitchen table, surrounded by unpaid bills, I felt the walls closing in. Maybe, I started, hating the words even as they left my mouth. Maybe we should consider moving back to my hometown, at least until we get back on our feet. Elliot's eyes widened. Cheryl, no. After everything your family's put you through? I know, I said, my voice cracking. But what choice do we have? We're drowning here. He took my hands in his gaze intense. We have each other. That's all we need. We'll find a way, I promise. I wanted to believe him, but doubt gnawed at me. As we went to bed that night, I stared at the ceiling, torn between my love for Elliot and the harsh realities we faced. Tomorrow, I decided. Tomorrow we'd make a plan. But as sleep finally claimed me, one thought echoed in my mind. How much longer could we hold on before everything fell apart? Despite our financial struggles, Elliot and I decided to move forward with our wedding plans. We couldn't afford much, but we were determined to celebrate our love on our own terms. The morning of the wedding, I stood in front of the mirror in Aunt Lorraine's spare bedroom, smoothing down my simple white dress. It wasn't the designer gown my mother had always envisioned for me, but it felt right. Aunt Lorraine appeared behind me, her eyes misty. "You look beautiful, Cheryl." I turned to hug her. "Thank you for everything, Aunt Lorraine. For letting us have the wedding here, for supporting us." She squeezed me tight. "That's what family is supposed to do, sweetie." A knock at the door interrupted us. To my surprise, my parents stood there, looking uncomfortable in their formal wear. "Can we come in?" Mom asked hesitantly. I nodded, steeling myself. They entered, their eyes taking in my appearance. "You look nice," Dad said awkwardly. "Thanks," I replied, the word feeling hollow. An uncomfortable silence fell. Finally, Mom spoke. "Cheryl, are you sure about this? It's not too late to reconsider." I felt my jaw clench. "Reconsider marrying the man I love?" "You know what we mean," Dad interjected. "This whole situation. The tiny wedding, Elliot's unstable career. You deserve better." "Better than what?" "Love, support, someone who sees me for who I am." I shot back. Mom sighed. "We just want you to have a secure future." "My future is with Elliot," I said firmly. "If you can't accept that, maybe you shouldn't be here." They exchanged a look, then nodded stiffly. "We'll see you at the ceremony," Dad said as they left. I took a deep breath, fighting back tears. Aunt Lorraine squeezed my shoulder. "Don't let them ruin your day, honey. This is about you and Elliot." The ceremony was small but beautiful, held in Aunt Lorraine's backyard. As I walked down the makeshift aisle, I saw Elliot beaming at me, his eyes filled with love. In that moment, all my doubts melted away. Our vows were simple but heartfelt. "Cheryl," Elliot said, his voice thick with emotion, "you've shown me what it means to truly be seen and loved. I promise to stand by you, to support your dreams, and to remind you every day how amazing you are." Tears streamed down my face as I replied, "Elliot, you've given me the strength to be myself. I promise to love you fiercely, to face whatever challenges come our way together, and to never let you forget how much you're valued." As we shared our first kiss as husband and wife, I caught sight of my parents in the small crowd. Their expressions were unreadable, a mix of resignation and something else I couldn't quite place. At the modest reception, I overheard my father talking to Jasper. "It's not what we imagined for you," he commented, glancing around the modest venue. I felt a flash of anger, but before I could respond, a familiar voice cut in. "I think it's perfect," Grandma Mabel said, appearing at my side. "It's a celebration of love, not a show of wealth." She turned to me, her eyes twinkling. "Cheryl, dear, I have something for you." From her purse, she pulled out a small velvet box. Inside was a stunning antique necklace, delicate gold filigree surrounding a deep blue sapphire. "This has been in our family for generations," Grandma Mabel explained. "I've always planned to give it to the grandchild who truly understood the value of family. That's you, Cheryl." As she fastened the necklace around my neck, I felt a wave of emotion wash over me. This was more than just a piece of jewelry. It was a symbol of acceptance and love. "Thank you, Grandma," I whispered, hugging her tightly. As the reception continued, I caught my mother eyeing the necklace with a mix of surprise and something that looked almost like jealousy. But I pushed those thoughts aside. Today wasn't about them. It was about Elliot and me and the life we were building together. As we danced under the twinkling lights, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. Whatever challenges lay ahead, we would face them together, surrounded by the people who truly loved us for who we were. 3 months after our wedding, Grandma Mabel insisted on hosting a family gathering to celebrate her 80th birthday. Despite my reservations, Elliot and I decided to attend. We hadn't seen my family since the wedding, and I hoped that time might have softened some of the tension. As we pulled up to Grandma's sprawling Victorian home, I felt a knot form in my stomach. Elliot squeezed my hand reassuringly. "We've got this," he whispered. Inside, the atmosphere was strained. My parents greeted us with forced smiles, while Jasper and Felix barely acknowledged our presence. Only Grandma Mabel seemed genuinely happy to see us, enveloping me in a warm hug. "I'm so glad you're here, dear," she said, her eyes twinkling. "I have a special announcement to make later." As the afternoon wore on, I found myself retreating to the kitchen, needing a moment away from the thinly veiled judgmental glances. To my surprise, Aunt Lorraine was there, pouring herself a generous glass of wine. "Rough day?" she asked, offering me a glass. I nodded, gratefully accepting. "I don't know why I thought things would be different." Aunt Lorraine sighed. "Family's complicated, sweetie. But remember, you're stronger than you know." Before I could respond, Grandma Mabel's voice rang out from the living room. "Everyone, gather around. I have something important to say." We filed back in, tension thick in the air. Grandma stood in the center of the room, her posture straight and proud despite her age. "As you all know, I've lived a long and blessed life," she began. "And as I've gotten older, I've been thinking about my legacy, about what truly matters." She paused, her gaze sweeping across the room before landing on me. "That's why I've decided to leave my entire estate to Cheryl." The room erupted in chaos. My parents gasped, Jasper knocked over a vase in shock, and Felix's face turned an alarming shade of red. "What?" Felix sputtered. "That's not fair. We're family too." Grandma Mabel held up a hand, silencing the room. "Cheryl has always been the one who truly understood the value of family. Not in terms of money or status, but in love, support, and understanding." She turned to me, her eyes filled with warmth. "You've always been there for me, dear, even when it wasn't easy. You've shown resilience and grace in the face of adversity. You've built a life based on love and passion, not expectations and materialism." I felt tears welling up in my eyes, overwhelmed by her words. Elliot's arm tightened around my waist, a silent pillar of support. "This is ridiculous," Jasper interjected. "She must have manipulated you somehow." Grandma's eyes flashed with anger. "I may be old, Jasper, but I'm not senile. This is my decision and it's final." My mother stepped forward, her voice trembling. "Mom, please. Think about what you're doing. Cheryl doesn't need Dash." "Doesn't need what, Evelyn?" Grandma cut her off. "The support you've never given her? The recognition of her worth that you've always denied her." The room fell silent, the weight of years of unspoken resentment hanging heavy in the air. I found my voice at last. "Grandma, I
don't know what to say."
"Thank you doesn't seem enough." She smiled, taking my hands in hers. "You don't need to say anything, dear. Just promise me you'll use this to build the life you've always dreamed of. The life you deserve." As I nodded, tears streaming down my face, I caught sight of my brothers. Their expressions were a mix of shock, anger, and something that looked almost like regret. My father cleared his throat. "Mabel, surely we can discuss this. There must be a more equitable solution." Grandma's voice was steel. "There's nothing to discuss, Martin. My mind is made up." As the reality of the situation sank in, I could feel the shift in the room. The looks directed at me changed from dismissal to barely concealed resentment. I knew that this moment, while validating, would irrevocably change my relationship with my family. Elliot's voice was low in my ear. "We should go." I nodded, suddenly feeling suffocated by the tension. As we made our way to the door, Grandma Mabel's words echoed in my mind. This was more than just an inheritance. It was a chance to rewrite my story, to build a life free from the shadows of my past. But as we drove away, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of a storm that had been brewing for years. The days following Grandma Mabel's announcement were a whirlwind of emotions and tense phone calls. I'd barely had time to process the enormity of her gift when my parents demanded a family meeting at their house. As Elliot and I pulled into the driveway, I felt a sense of dread settling in my stomach. Maybe this wasn't such a good idea, I murmured. Elliot squeezed my hand. We'll face this together. Remember, you've done nothing wrong. The moment we stepped inside, the tension was palpable. My parents sat stiffly on the couch, while Jasper and Felix paced the room like caged animals. Sit down, my father commanded, his voice cold. I took a deep breath and sat, Elliot a steady presence beside me. This has to stop, Cheryl, my mother began, her voice trembling with barely contained anger. You need to renounce the inheritance. It's not fair to your brothers. I felt a flash of indignation. Not fair? When has anything ever been fair in this family? Felix slammed his hand on the coffee table. This isn't fair, Cheryl, he argued, his entitlement clear. We deserve it just as much as you. Deserve it. I shot back, years of pent-up frustration bubbling to the surface. What exactly have you done to deserve it, besides being the golden children who could do no wrong? Jasper stepped forward, his face red. That's rich coming from you. Always playing the victim, never taking responsibility for your own failures. Failures? Elliot interjected, his voice sharp. Cheryl is incredibly talented and hardworking. Just because her success doesn't fit your narrow definition dash. Stay out of this, my father snapped. This is a family matter. I stood up, anger coursing through me. Elliot is my family, the only one who's truly supported me. My mother's eyes filled with tears. How can you say that? We've always wanted what's best for you. No, I said, my voice steady. You've always wanted what you thought was best for me. You never bothered to ask what I wanted, what would make me happy. And this makes you happy? Jasper sneered, taking advantage of Grandma's senility. I felt my hands clench into fists. How dare you? Grandma is of sound mind, and she made this decision because she sees me for who I am. Something none of you have ever bothered to do. Enough, my father roared. Cheryl, you will renounce this inheritance, or you'll no longer be welcome in this family. The room fell silent, the weight of his ultimatum hanging heavy in the air. I looked around at the faces of my family, the people who were supposed to love me unconditionally, and saw only anger, resentment, and greed. In that moment, something inside me shifted. The last threads of hope I'd been clinging to, that someday they might see me, might value me, snapped. No, I said, my voice quiet but firm. What did you say? My mother gasped. I straightened my spine, meeting each of their gazes in turn. I said no. I won't renounce the inheritance. Grandma made her decision, and I'm honoring it. Felix lunged forward, but Elliot stepped between us. Back off, he warned. You ungrateful little dash, Jasper started, but I cut him off. I'm done, I said, surprising myself with how calm I felt. I'm done trying to earn your love, your approval. I'm done dimming my light to make you comfortable. This inheritance isn't just about money. It's about recognizing my worth, something you've never been able to do. I turned to my parents, seeing the shock on their faces. You said I wouldn't be welcome in this family if I didn't renounce the inheritance. Well, let me make it easy for you. I don't want to be part of a family that only values me when I'm giving them something. I took Elliot's hand, drawing strength from his presence. We're leaving now. Don't try to contact us. As we walked out the door, I heard my mother's sobs and my father's angry shouts. But for the first time in my life, I didn't feel guilty. I felt free. In the car, Elliot turned to me, his eyes filled with concern and pride. Are you okay? I took a deep breath, feeling lighter than I had in years. You know what? I think I am. For the first time, I'm really okay. As we drove away from my childhood home, I realized that this wasn't just an ending. It was a beginning, a chance to build a life filled with love, respect, and true family, the kind that sees you for who you really are. 2 years after the explosive confrontation with my family, Elliot and I stood hand in hand on the balcony of our new home. The sun was setting, casting a warm glow over the bustling art district below. It was a far cry from the cramped apartment we'd shared when we first got married. "Can you believe it?" Elliot whispered, squeezing my hand. "We did it, Cheryl. We built this together." I leaned into him, feeling a sense of peace I'd never known before. It's more than I ever dreamed possible. The inheritance from Grandma Mabel had been a turning point, but it wasn't just about the money. It was the validation, the recognition of my worth that had given me the strength to pursue my passions without fear or guilt. We'd used the funds to open a small gallery, showcasing both my restored artworks and Elliot's music. It had been a risk, but one that paid off beyond our wildest expectations. People were drawn to the unique combination of visual and auditory art, and soon we'd gained a reputation as innovators in the local art scene. As we gazed out at the city, I thought about how far we'd come. The struggles, the doubts, the painful severing of toxic family ties, it had all led us here. "Cheryl?" Elliot's voice pulled me from my thoughts. "There's something I want to show you." He led me back inside to his music room, where a canvas stood covered in the corner. With a flourish, he pulled off the cloth, revealing a stunning portrait of me. But it wasn't just me as I was now. The painting showed different versions of myself at various ages, from a wide-eyed child to the woman I'd become. Each version was emerging from shadows into light, growing stronger and more vibrant. "Elliot," I gasped, tears welling in my eyes. "It's beautiful, but I thought you were a musician, not a painter." He grinned sheepishly. "I've been taking lessons in secret. I wanted to show you how I see you, how you've always been this incredible, resilient person, even when others couldn't see it." I threw my arms around him, overwhelmed by the love and understanding in this gesture. This was what true family meant, seeing and celebrating each other's growth, supporting each other's dreams. As we held each other, the doorbell rang. Puzzled, I went to answer it. To my shock, Aunt Lorraine stood there, looking nervous. "I hope I'm not intruding," she said hesitantly. I wanted to see how you were doing." I invited her in, a mix of emotions swirling inside me. As we sat in the living room, she looked around in awe. "This place is amazing, Cheryl. You've really made something beautiful here." "Thank you," I said, still cautious. "But why are you here, Aunt Lorraine?" She sighed, her eyes filling with tears. "I've been thinking a lot about family lately, about the mistakes we've made, the hurt we've caused. I wanted you to know that I'm proud of you, Cheryl, for standing up for yourself, for building this life." Her words hit me like a wave, washing away the last remnants of doubt and guilt I'd been carrying. "That means a lot, Aunt Lorraine. Thank you." We talked for hours, rebuilding a relationship on new, healthier terms. As she was leaving, she paused at the door. "Your parents and brothers, they're starting to realize what they've lost. They might not be ready to admit it yet, but they miss you." I nodded, feeling a twinge of sadness, but no regret. If they ever want to be part of my life again, they'll have to accept me for who I am. All of me. After she left, I found Elliot in the gallery downstairs, tuning his guitar for tomorrow's performance. He looked up as I entered, his face softening at my expression. "You okay?" he asked. I smiled, feeling lighter than I had in years. "More than okay. I'm happy, Elliot. Truly, deeply happy." He set down his guitar and pulled me close. "That's all I've ever wanted for you, love." As we stood there, surrounded by the art we'd created together, I realized that this was the family I'd always longed for. One built on love, respect, and mutual support. The road hadn't been easy, but every struggle had led me here, to this moment of pure contentment. I may have started this journey as the forgotten daughter, but I'd emerged as something far greater, a woman who had found her voice, her passion, and her true family. And that was worth more than any inheritance could ever be. The steady beep of medical equipment was the first thing I noticed when I clawed my way back to consciousness. My throat felt like sandpaper, and the fluorescent lights above made me squint. The room was drowning in flowers, roses, lilies, and arrangements I couldn't name. Their overwhelming sweetness made my stomach turn. "My name is Alara, and this wasn't how I'd planned to spend my 28th birthday." You're awake. Zane's voice cracked as he grabbed my hand. His usually perfect hair was disheveled, dark circles under his eyes. I've been here every day. The doctors weren't sure when you'd. I tried to speak, but only managed a weak cough. A nurse appeared with ice chips, and Zane helped guide them to my mouth. As the cool relief trickled down my throat, fragments of memory started flooding back. Headlights, screeching tires, my parents' voices. My parents. I whispered, though deep down, I already knew the answer. The way Zane's face crumpled told me everything. I'm so sorry, sweetheart, he said, squeezing my hand tighter. They didn't make it. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. I closed my eyes, trying to block out the truth, but it was already burrowing into my chest like a physical wound. When I finally opened them again, I noticed something else was wrong. Very wrong. I couldn't feel my legs. Zane. My voice shook. I can't move my legs. He pressed the call button, and within minutes, Dr. Lin appeared. He was gentle but direct as he explained the extent of my injuries: severe spinal trauma, partial paralysis from the waist down. The words washed over me like waves, each one pulling me further under. With intensive physical therapy, there's a chance for partial recovery, Dr. Lin said, his kind eyes meeting mine. But I want to be honest. It's going to be a long road. I nodded mechanically, still processing. That's when I noticed Zane's mother, Loretta, hovering in the doorway. She'd always reminded me of a bird of prey, elegant but sharp-eyed. Now she was looking at me with what seemed like genuine concern, but something in her expression made me uneasy. We're all here for you, dear, she said, gliding into the room. Her perfectly manicured hand patted my shoulder. Zane's already arranged to take time off work to help care for you. You have. I turned to Zane, surprised. He'd been climbing the corporate ladder at his firm for years, barely taking weekends off. Of course, he said, but something flickered across his face. Doubt? Fear? I've been thinking. Maybe this is a sign. About what really matters. He reached into his pocket, and my heart stopped as he pulled out a small velvet box. I know the timing might seem strange, but life is precious. Will you marry me, Alara? The ring was beautiful, probably worth several months of his salary. But as he slipped it onto my finger, all I could think about was how cold it felt. Behind him, Loretta was beaming, but her smile didn't quite reach her eyes. I need time to think, I managed, my voice barely above a whisper. Everything's happening so fast. Of course, Loretta jumped in before Zane could respond. You need rest, dear. We should go. She practically pulled Zane from the room, leaving me alone with my thoughts and the suffocating scent of flowers. As I drifted off to sleep, my mother's voice echoed in my memory. Trust your instincts, sweetheart. They'll never steer you wrong. Something about Zane's proposal, about Loretta's too perfect concern, set off warning bells in my head. But maybe that was just the grief talking. I closed my eyes, trying to ignore the nagging feeling that this was only the beginning of something much bigger than a marriage proposal. Coming home should have felt comforting. Instead, I wheeled through my childhood house feeling like a stranger. Ramps had replaced the familiar steps, and grab bars now dotted the walls like metallic scars. The changes were necessary, but they only emphasized how different everything had become. Zane had moved in temporarily to help with my transition home, though his definition of temporary seemed to stretch with each passing day. He'd already filled half the closet in my parents' old room with his designer suits, even though he wasn't working anymore. The contractors did an amazing job with the modifications, Loretta announced, running her hand along one of the new railings. She'd been here every day since my return, rearranging things without asking. Though these old curtains really need to go. They're so dated. Those curtains were hand-sewn by my mother. I gripped my wheels tighter, knuckles turning white. They're staying. Now, dear, Loretta's voice took on that syrupy tone I was growing to hate. You need to focus on healing, not clinging to the past. Zane, tell her. Zane, who'd been absorbed in his phone, looked up with that increasingly distant expression. Maybe Mom's right. A fresh start might be good. Before I could argue, the doorbell rang. Zane's father, Clyde, walked in without waiting for an answer. He rarely spoke, but his presence filled the room like smoke, making it hard to breathe. The estate lawyer called. he announced, addressing Zane rather than me. We should discuss the house situation soon. What house situation? I asked, though dread was already pooling in my stomach. Just some paperwork, Zane jumped in quickly. Nothing to worry about right now. I watched them exchange glances, a whole conversation happening without words. The engagement ring felt heavy on my finger, like a shackle rather than a promise. Later that evening, after the Holloways finally left, I wheeled into my father's study. The room still smelled like his pipe tobacco and old books. But something was off. The antique desk, passed down through 3 generations, looked emptier somehow. I opened drawers, counting the missing items. Dad's vintage fountain pen collection, Mom's first edition books, the small Tiffany lamp that always sat in the corner. Each absence felt like a fresh wound. My phone buzzed, a text from my best friend Lila. Coming by tomorrow. No excuses. Miss your face. 2 hearts. I smiled, my first genuine one in days. Lila would understand. She'd always seen through people's facades, including Zane's perfect boyfriend act when we first started dating. The sound of footsteps made me quickly close the drawer. Zane appeared in the doorway, his smile not quite reaching his eyes. You should be resting, he said, moving behind my wheelchair. Let me help you to bed. I can manage, I insisted, but he was already gripping the handles. Don't be stubborn. You heard what Dr. Lin said about overdoing it. As he wheeled me toward the bedroom, I caught a reflection in the hallway mirror. The concern on his face looked rehearsed, like an actor who'd forgotten his motivation halfway through a scene. Zane, I said carefully, where's Dad's pen collection? His hands tightened slightly on the wheelchair handles. Oh, your mom probably packed it away somewhere. You know how she liked to reorganize. The lie hung between us like poison gas. My mother had never touched those pens. They were Dad's pride and joy, and she respected that. Right, I said, letting him think I believed him. Must be packed away somewhere. That night, after Zane fell asleep, I lay awake listening to his steady breathing. The man next to me felt like a stranger wearing my boyfriend's face. The same face that had proposed to me in the hospital, offering security when I was at my most vulnerable. My mother's voice echoed in my head again. Trust your instincts. Well, my instincts were screaming now. And Lila's visit tomorrow couldn't come soon enough. I needed someone who would tell me the truth, even if it wasn't what I wanted to hear. Something was very wrong in this house, and I was going to find out what it was, with or without the use of my legs. Lila arrived like a burst of fresh air, bringing coffee and her no-nonsense attitude. One look at my face and she knew something was wrong. We settled in the sunroom, away from Zane's constant hovering. Spill it, she said, handing me my favorite caramel latte. You look like you're carrying the weight of the world. I told her everything. The missing items, the whispered conversations, the way Zane and his parents exchanged loaded glances when they thought I wasn't looking. With each word, the knot in my chest loosened slightly. I knew something was off with that proposal, Lila muttered. Who proposes to someone who just lost their parents and woke up paralyzed? That's some soap opera-level manipulation. Before I could respond, voices drifted in from the hallway. Loretta and Zane, arguing in harsh whispers. You're taking too long, Loretta hissed. The insurance money won't last forever, and that house. I know what I'm doing, Mother, Zane snapped back. Just stick to the plan. Lila's eyes met mine, wide with concern. We sat in tense silence until their footsteps faded. Lila leaned forward, her voice low. Have you checked your mom's jewelry box? The one with the locket. My heart dropped. Mom's locket, a family heirloom passed down through generations. I hadn't even thought to look for it yet. Lila helped me wheel to my parents' bedroom, where the jewelry box sat on the dresser. My hands shook as I opened it. Empty. Maybe Zane moved it somewhere safe? Lila suggested, but we both knew better. Later that afternoon, during one of Loretta's inevitable visits, I saw it. There, hanging around her neck, was my mother's locket. The same one that had contained pictures of my grandparents, the same one my mother had promised would be mine on my wedding day. That's a beautiful necklace, I said, my voice surprisingly steady despite the rage building inside me. Loretta's hand flew to her throat. Oh, this old thing? Zane gave it to me. Said he found it in a drawer somewhere. Really? I wheeled closer, noticing how she took a small step back. Because that's my mother's locket. the one she wore every day for 30 years. The color drained from Loretta's face. I had no idea. Zane must have. Must have what? I cut her off. Stolen it from my dead mother's jewelry box? Just like someone's been stealing everything else in this house. Now, dear, you're getting yourself worked up over nothing. Her voice took on that condescending tone I'd grown to hate. You're still grieving, seeing things that aren't. Take it off. My words came out like ice. Excuse me, the locket. Take it off and give it to me. Now. For a moment, something ugly flashed across Loretta's perfectly made-up face. Then slowly, she unclasped the necklace and dropped it into my outstretched hand. I suppose grief can make people rather possessive, she said, smoothing her designer blouse. I'll just go find Zane. As she clicked away in her expensive heels, I opened the locket with trembling fingers. The pictures inside weren't of my grandparents anymore. They'd been replaced with photos of Zane as a child. That witch, Lila breathed, looking over my shoulder. Al, you need to do something. This isn't just about missing stuff anymore. They're trying to erase your family. I closed my fingers around the locket, feeling the metal bite into my palm. You're right. But first, I need proof. Real proof that shows exactly what they're doing. I might have an idea about that, Lila said, pulling out her phone. My brother works in security systems. How do you feel about some hidden cameras? For the first time in weeks, I felt something other than grief and confusion. Something that felt dangerously close to satisfaction. Call him, I said, clutching my mother's locket. It's time to show the Holloways exactly who they're dealing with. As Lila made the call, I watched Loretta through the window, talking intensely with Zane by their car. They had no idea what was coming. Good. Let them think I was just the grieving, helpless girl in the wheelchair. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Lila's brother installed the cameras while Zane was at another mysterious meeting with his parents. 3 days later, I watched the footage on my laptop, my hands gripping the armrests of my wheelchair, so tight my knuckles turned white. The insurance money's nearly cleared. Zane's voice crackled through the speakers. He was standing in my father's study with both his parents. But she's getting suspicious about the missing items. Clyde's usually stoic face showed rare animation. The house is worth 10 times that insurance payout. We need to convince her to sell before she realizes. Before she realizes what? Loretta interrupted, pacing. That her perfect boyfriend is helping us strip her family home bare? That we've been selling her inheritance piece by piece. My stomach lurched. I forced myself to keep watching. She trusts me, Zane said, but his voice wavered. The engagement was a good move. Once you're married, everything becomes community property, Clyde finished. Including this house. I slammed the laptop shut, my breath coming in short gasps. The doorbell rang, making me jump. Dr. Lynn stood outside, early for my weekly checkup. Alara, he said, studying my face with concern. Are you all right? I wheeled back to let him in, noticing how his eyes swept over the increasingly bare walls. He'd known my parents for years, had been our family doctor since I was a teenager. They're stealing everything, I blurted out. Zane and his parents, they're selling my family's belongings. Planning to take the house. Instead of looking surprised, Dr. Lynn's expression turned grim. I was afraid of something like this. Your father came to see me a week before the accident. He was worried about Zane's sudden interest in your family's finances. My heart stopped. What? He asked me to give you this if anything happened to them. He pulled an envelope from his bag. I was waiting for the right time, but it seems that time is now. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside was a letter in my father's precise handwriting, along with several documents. My dearest Elle, it began. If you're reading this, something has happened to your mother and me. I've noticed some concerning behavior from Zane recently. Questions about our assets, our property values. Call it paranoia, but I've taken steps to protect you. The documents were legal papers. My father had created a trust before his death, putting the house and most of their assets in my name with ironclad conditions. Even marriage couldn't touch it. They can't take any of it, I whispered, looking up at Dr. Lynn. The house, the insurance money, it's all protected. Your father was a careful man, Dr. Lynn said softly. He wanted to make sure you were truly protected, not just physically cared for. The front door opened, Zane returning. I quickly handed the papers back to Dr. Lin, who tucked them into his medical bag just as Zane entered. Dr. Lin, Zane smiled his perfect smile. "How's our patient doing?" "Showing remarkable strength," Dr. Lin replied, his tone professional but cool. "We'll need to schedule some additional physical therapy sessions. Perhaps 3 times a week." I caught his meaning immediately. 3 times a week would give me more freedom to plan my next move. "That sounds perfect," I said, forcing a smile. "Zane, honey, could you get me some water?" As soon as Zane left the room, Dr. Lin pressed a card into my hand. "An excellent lawyer," he whispered. "Call her." That evening, I watched Zane cooking dinner in our kitchen, my kitchen, humming to himself like he hadn't spent the afternoon plotting to steal my inheritance. The engagement ring felt like it was burning my finger. My phone buzzed with a text from Lila. "Lawyer appointment set for tomorrow. Time to show these thieves what happens when they mess with the wrong family." Fire. I smiled, thinking of my father's foresight, my mother's strength. The Holloways thought they were dealing with a grieving, helpless girl. They were about to learn just how wrong they were. Let them keep playing their game. I was done being the pawn. The lawyer's office felt too small for my wheelchair and the weight of what I'd learned. Miss Chen, the attorney Dr. Lin recommended, reviewed the hidden camera footage with sharp eyes. "They've been selling items through various online accounts," she said, sliding printouts across her desk. "We've traced most of the transactions. Your father's pen collection alone went for thousands." I stared at the papers, recognizing photos of my family's treasures listed on auction sites. "Can we get them back?" "Some. But that's not what concerns me most." She pulled out another document. "Someone attempted to access your parents' safety deposit box yesterday. The signature on the request form matches Zane's." My hands clenched around my armrests. What else were they trying to take? Later that afternoon, during my physical therapy session, Dr. Lin noticed my distraction. "Your body won't heal if your mind is in chaos," he said, helping me with my exercises. "I found my mother's old art supplies in the attic," I replied, changing the subject. "She used to paint landscapes." His eyes lit up. "Perhaps you should try it. Art can be incredibly therapeutic." That evening, I set up an easel in my bedroom, away from Zane's prying eyes. The blank canvas stared back at me like a challenge. As I picked up the brush, my phone buzzed with a text from Loretta, "Coming over tomorrow with wedding planners. Time to start making decisions." 2 hearts. The brush in my hand trembled. Then, almost of its own accord, it dipped into the dark red paint. I started painting, not landscapes like my mother, but something else entirely. Something that looked like flames. Hours passed. I barely noticed Zane checking on me, his expression unreadable as he watched me work. The painting took shape, a house burning, but with flowers blooming from the ashes. My house. My legacy. "That's intense," Lila said when she arrived the next morning, studying the finished piece. "You're planning something, aren't you?" Before I could answer, voices drifted up from downstairs. Loretta had arrived early with the wedding planners. "We'll need to clear out all this old furniture," Loretta was saying. "Start fresh. New beginnings and all that." I wheeled to the top of the ramp, Lila behind me. Loretta stood in my living room with 2 elegant women in business suits, gesturing at my mother's antique furniture like it was yard sale junk. "Actually," I said, making them all jump, "I've been doing some thinking about new beginnings." Loretta's smile flickered. "Wonderful, dear. These ladies have the most amazing ideas for transforming this old place." I meant about the wedding. I touched the engagement ring, which now felt like a brand. "And the house. And everything else you've been stealing." The wedding planners exchanged uncomfortable glances as Loretta's face went pale. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Zane, could you come here, please?" "He's out," I said, watching her composure crack. "Probably trying to access my parents' safety deposit box again." "How much do you think that's worth, Loretta?" "More than my father's pens." "You ungrateful little," she caught herself, noticing the wedding planners' shocked expressions. "Ladies, could you give us a moment?" They practically fled, leaving Loretta glaring at me with undisguised hatred. "Everything we've done has been for your own good. You're in no condition to manage this house, this wealth." "You mean you're in no condition to keep pretending you're not drowning in debt?" I rolled closer, enjoying how she stepped back. Yes, I know about that too. The failed investments, the second mortgage, all of it. Her face contorted. You have no idea what it's like to watch everything slip away. To need. To need what? To steal from a grieving, paralyzed woman. I gestured to my painting, propped against the wall. Look closely, Loretta. That's what's coming. I'm going to burn your whole plan to the ground. She fled, leaving the front door open behind her. Lila whistled low. Demel. That was just the beginning. I finished, wheeling back to my easel. I had another painting in mind, this one of a spider caught in its own web. Tomorrow, Zane would come home to find the engagement ring on his pillow. But first, I had some calls to make. Starting with the police. The police arrived just as Zane's car pulled into the driveway. I watched from my studio window as he stepped out, confusion crossing his face at the sight of the patrol cars. Behind him, his parents' Mercedes screeched to a halt. Loretta must have called them. Miss Winslow. Detective Martinez appeared in my doorway. We're ready when you are. I wheeled myself downstairs, Lila following close behind. The living room had become a staging ground, with officers documenting the empty spaces where family heirlooms once stood. Zane stood frozen in the center of it all, his perfect facade finally cracking. Al, what's going on? His voice wavered. Why are the police here? Show them, I said to Detective Martinez, who nodded to another officer. The laptop screen flickered to life, projecting the hidden camera footage onto the wall. Zane's face drained of color as his own voice filled the room. The insurance money's nearly cleared. She trusts me. Once we're married. Loretta burst through the door, Clyde right behind her. This is ridiculous. We were helping her. By selling my father's antique pen collection? I cut in, pulling up the online auction receipts. By trying to access my parents' safety deposit box? That's an interesting definition of help. You don't understand. Zane stepped toward me, but stopped when Lila moved protectively closer. We were going to pay it all back. After the wedding, once everything was settled. You mean once you had control of my inheritance? The words tasted bitter. Once you'd finished stripping away everything my parents worked for? Your parents. Loretta's laugh was sharp. Your precious parents had no idea what it's like to struggle. To watch everything you've built crumble while keeping up appearances. Mother, stop, Zane warned, but she was too far gone. We deserved this. After everything we've sacrificed, everything we've endured, she grabbed my mother's vase from the mantel. The last piece they hadn't managed to sell. This single piece is worth more than your father made in a year. Mrs. Holloway, Detective Martinez stepped forward. Please put down the vase. Instead, she hurled it at the wall above my head. I flinched as porcelain shards rained down, one cutting my cheek. The room erupted into chaos. Officers moved in. Clyde finally spoke up to defend his wife and Zane. Zane just stood there, looking lost between his family and me. Elle, please, he finally said, his voice breaking. I do love you. That part wasn't a lie. No, I touched my bleeding cheek. The lie was thinking I was too broken to fight back. As the officers led the Holloways out, reading them their rights, I felt strangely empty. This was my victory, wasn't it? So why did it feel like I'd lost something too? Later that night, after the police had gone and Lila had reluctantly left, I sat alone in my parents' room. The engagement ring sat heavy in my palm, catching the moonlight like tears. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. A photo appeared, my mother's locket, the one I'd taken back from Loretta, lying smashed on concrete. Below it, words that made my blood freeze. You think this is over? You have no idea what else we took from your parents that night. The implication hit me like a physical blow. The accident that killed my parents and left me paralyzed. Had it really been an accident? I stared at my reflection in the window, at the cut on my cheek still slowly bleeding. The woman looking back at me wasn't the same one who'd woken up in that hospital room. She was harder now, colder. But maybe that's what I needed to be to uncover the whole truth. I wheeled to my easel and started a new painting. Not of flames this time, but of shattered glass and hidden shadows. Because this wasn't over, it was just beginning. And this time, I wasn't fighting just for my inheritance. I was fighting for justice. Detective Martinez called me at dawn. They'd found something in Clyde's office, documents about my parents' accident. I knew where I needed to go. The county jail's visiting room was cold and sterile. Zane sat across from me, still wearing his designer clothes, though they looked rumpled now. Dark circles shadowed his eyes. "I didn't expect to see you," he said quietly. I placed the documents on the table between us. "Tell me about the brake lines." His face went pale. Don't." My voice was steady, surprising even me. "Just tell me the truth." For once. He stared at the papers, his hands trembling slightly. It wasn't supposed to happen like that. Dad just wanted to delay them from getting to the lawyer's office. Scare them a little. The room seemed to tilt. Scare them? They were going to change their will. Dad found out through his connections at the bank. Zane's voice cracked. Mom was desperate. The bankruptcy papers were already filed. When she found out your parents were worth millions. "So you tampered with their car." The words felt like glass in my throat. Dad did. I knew about it afterward. But by then you were in the hospital and I thought. He reached for my hand. I jerked away. "You thought what?" "That marrying me would make up for killing my parents." "I do love you all." That part was real. His eyes filled with tears. "When I saw you in that hospital bed, I wanted to protect you." "Protect me?" I laughed, harsh and cold. "By stealing everything they left me? By letting your mother wear my dead mother's jewelry? You don't understand what it's like to lose everything." He slammed his hand on the table. A guard stepped forward, but I waved them back. "Actually, I do. Thanks to your family, I lost my parents, my ability to walk, and my trust and love, all in one night." I pulled out my phone, showing him the text message about my mother's locket. "Was this you or your mother?" His face changed, confusion replacing guilt. "What text?" "I've been in here since the arrest." A chill ran down my spine. If not Zane or his parents, then who? "There's something else you should know," he said, leaning forward. "Dad wasn't working alone. Someone at the bank helped him access your parents' information. Someone who's still out there." The pieces started falling into place. The mysterious text, the broken locket, the timing of everything. "Who?" I demanded. "I don't know their name. But Dad said they had a grudge against your father from years ago. Something about a failed business deal." A guard announced visiting time was over. As they led Zane away, he turned back. "I'm sorry. For everything. I know it doesn't help, but..." "You're right," I cut him off. "It doesn't help." Outside, Lila was waiting in her car. One look at my face and she knew something was wrong. "There's more to this than we thought," I said, showing her the documents. "Someone else was involved. Someone who might still be after me." "Then we'll find them," she said firmly. "Together." I touched the scar on my cheek from Loretta's throne vase, thinking about my latest painting, the one of shattered glass and shadows. I'd left space in the corner unfinished, as if waiting for something. Now I knew what belonged there. Truth, emerging from darkness. My phone buzzed again, another anonymous text. "Your father should have listened all those years ago. Now you'll pay for his mistakes." I showed it to Lila, who swore under her breath. "What are you going to do?" I thought about my parents, about justice and revenge, about the fine line between the two. "I'm going to finish my painting," I said. "And then I'm going to find out who's really behind all of this. Because sometimes revenge isn't about destroying your enemies. Sometimes it's about exposing the truth, no matter how deep it's buried." And I was just getting started. 6 months after the Holloway's arrest, I sat in my studio, surrounded by paintings that told the story of my transformation. The morning light streamed through windows no longer shadowed by doubt and deception. Detective Martinez had called yesterday with news. They'd identified the bank insider who helped orchestrate my parents' accident. My father's former business partner, driven by a decades-old grudge, had finally been arrested. The last piece of the puzzle, falling into place. But revenge, I'd learned, wasn't the bomb I'd expected it to be. I wheeled myself to my latest canvas, a work in progress showing a wheelchair transformed into wings. Dr. Lin had suggested art therapy months ago, but it had become more than therapy. It had become my voice, my freedom. "Ready for your first gallery showing?" Lila appeared in the doorway, carrying coffee and her characteristic optimism. "The space downtown is perfect. Almost. I gestured to the stack of recovered family items in the corner. Dad's pens, Mom's books, pieces of our history slowly coming home. I found something else this morning. I handed her a sealed envelope, discovered behind my mother's restored jewelry box. My name was written in her elegant handwriting. Have you opened it? Lila asked softly. Not yet. I took a deep breath. Would you? She carefully broke the seal and began reading. My dearest Elle, if you're reading this, something has happened to me and your father. Know that we saw your strength long before you needed to prove it to anyone else. My mother's words filled the studio, her voice somehow present in every syllable. She wrote about love, about resilience, about the difference between justice and vengeance. And then, your father and I always knew someone might come after our success, our legacy. But our real legacy isn't in the house or the possessions. It's in you, in your spirit that refuses to break, in your heart that knows how to love despite loss. Lila's voice cracked as she read the final lines. Don't let anger define you, sweetheart. Let it refine you. We sat in silence, letting the words settle around us like autumn leaves. She knew, I finally said. They both knew something might happen. And they made sure you were protected, Lila added, touching the legal documents that had saved my inheritance. I wheeled to the window, looking out at the garden I'd started replanting. I spent so long wanting revenge. I almost forgot about living. The doorbell rang. Dr. Lin arriving for my final physical therapy assessment. He'd been right about so many things, especially about finding strength in unexpected places. Your latest work, he said, studying the wheelchair wings painting. It's different. Hopeful. I'm different, I replied, thinking of my mother's words. I thought getting justice would feel like winning. But the real victory was in refusing to let them break me. Later that evening, alone in my studio, I picked up my brushes one last time. On the wings painting, I added something new, a small locket, broken but mending, its pieces held together by golden light. My phone buzzed, a message from the prison. Zane wanted to see me one last time before his transfer. I deleted it without responding. Some chapters needed to stay closed. Instead, I opened my laptop and typed, Dear Mom and Dad, today I finally understood what you meant about legacy. The house creaked softly around me, no longer haunted by what was stolen, but filled with what remained, strength, memory. Love transformed by fire, but not consumed by it. Outside, the garden waited for tomorrow's light. I'd planted roses where Mom's used to grow, but added wildflowers too, something new among the familiar. Like me, the garden was both memory and possibility, roots and wings. My story wasn't ending. It was evolving, like paint changing color as it dried, revealing deeper shades beneath the surface. And I was ready for whatever canvas came next. Because sometimes the greatest revenge isn't in destroying what hurt you, but in creating something beautiful from the ashes. That's what my parents would have wanted. That's what I wanted too. I never expected that a quiet evening spent sorting through my dad's old study would flip my world upside down. My name's Avery, and I'm an urban planner. I've always been driven by a sense of purpose, a desire to build and create. But that night, I found something that would make me question everything I thought I knew about my family. I was just trying to tidy up, you know? My mom, Lorraine, had been nagging me for weeks to go through Dad's things. He passed away a few years ago, and we hadn't had the heart to sort through his study until now. As I rummaged through piles of yellowing papers and dusty blueprints, I stumbled upon a rolled-up sheet hidden behind a stack of old architecture magazines. It was a blueprint of a development project I'd never heard of, marked with my dad's unmistakable handwriting. The name on the plan? Everett Heights. The Everetts were a prominent family in town, known for their philanthropy and real estate empire. Nolan, my boyfriend, was part of that family, but we never really talked about his parents' business. I felt a chill run down my spine as I unrolled the blueprint further, revealing a complex urban development plan. It was detailed, ambitious, and completely unfamiliar to me. My heart pounded as I took the blueprint to my mom. I found her in the kitchen, nursing a cup of chamomile tea, her face lined with the kind of worry that never really goes away. I laid the blueprint on the table and watched her expression shift from curiosity to something darker. Mom, do you know anything about this? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Lorraine looked at the blueprint, then at me, her eyes filled with a mixture of sadness and something else I couldn't quite place. "Your father was working on that before he passed," she said softly, her fingers tracing the lines on the paper as if they held memories. "Why didn't you tell me?" I pressed, feeling a surge of frustration. "It was complicated, Avery," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. He never finished it. There were issues. With the Everetts? I asked, my mind racing. Lorraine hesitated, and that was all the confirmation I needed. I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. The Everetts were more than just Nolan's family. They were practically royalty in our town. If they were involved in whatever had derailed my dad's project, I needed to know why. And if they had a hand in his downfall, I needed to know how. Lorraine reached out and touched my arm, a silent plea for caution. "Be careful, Avery. Digging into the past can be dangerous." But I couldn't just let it go. This was my father's work, his legacy. I owed it to him to find out what happened. I nodded, but my mind was already spinning with questions and possibilities. I needed to talk to Nolan to see if he knew anything about this project or his family's involvement. As I left the kitchen, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was standing on the edge of something big, something that could change everything. The blueprint felt like a key, and I was determined to unlock whatever secrets it held. Later, as I sat in my room, the blueprint spread out on my bed, I felt a mix of anticipation and dread. I knew this was the beginning of something, a path that could lead to answers or even more questions. But one thing was certain, I couldn't ignore it. My dad's work deserved justice, and I was going to find it no matter what. I glanced at my phone, debating whether to call Nolan. I needed to know if he was aware of any of this, but I also feared what his reaction might be. Would he stand by me, or would his loyalty to his family come first? The thought gnawed at me, but I pushed it aside. I'd deal with that when the time came. For now, I had a blueprint, a mystery, and a determination that burned brighter than ever. I was ready to dig deeper, to uncover the truth, even if it meant facing the powerful Everett family. And as I stared at the blueprint, I couldn't help but wonder what else I might find hidden in the shadows of the past. I sat across from Nolan in the dim light of our favorite cafe, the blueprint burning a hole in my bag. I hadn't mentioned it yet, trying to gauge his mood. He was talking about some new project at work, but my mind was miles away, tangled in thoughts of my dad and the Everetts. "Avery, are you okay?" Nolan's voice cut through my thoughts. He looked genuinely concerned, his brow furrowed in that way that always softened my heart. "Yeah, sorry," I replied, forcing a smile. "Just a lot on my mind." "Is it work?" he asked, reaching across the table to squeeze my hand. I hesitated, then decided to just rip off the bandage. "It's about my dad. I found something in his study that I think you should see." His expression shifted slightly, curiosity mingled with something else. Was it apprehension? I pulled out the blueprint and laid it between us, watching his reaction closely. "What is this?" he asked, picking it up and scanning the lines and notes. "It's a development plan connected to your family," I said, my voice steady but my heart racing. "Everett Heights. My dad was working on it before he died." Nolan's eyes flicked up to meet mine, and for a moment, I saw a flicker of recognition. "I've heard of it," he admitted slowly. "But I thought it was just another one of my mom's projects. Did you know my dad was involved?" I pressed. "No, Avery, I swear." "I had no idea," he replied, his voice earnest. But there was a tension in his shoulders, a stiffness that hadn't been there before. "I need to find out what happened," I said, leaning in. "I think your family knows more than they're letting on." Nolan sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. "Avery, you know how my mom is. She keeps everything close to the chest. But I'll talk to her, see what I can find out." I nodded, grateful but also wary. I knew how tight-knit the Everetts were, how fiercely they protected their own. "Thanks, Nolan. I need answers." As we finished our drinks, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of a much bigger storm. Nolan's loyalty was torn, and I couldn't help but feel guilty for putting him in this position. But I couldn't ignore the truth, not when it was so close. Later that evening, as I sat with my mom in the living room, I could see the worry etched into her face. "You talked to Nolan?" she asked, her voice gentle but probing. "Yeah, I did," I replied, trying to sound more confident than I felt. "He's going to ask Margot about the project." Lorraine sighed, her eyes distant. "I just hope you know what you're doing, Avery." The Everetts. They're not easy people to deal with. "I know, Mom. But I can't just let this go." She nodded, but I could see the fear in her eyes. "Just promise me you'll be careful. Sometimes the past is better left buried." I didn't respond, but her words lingered in my mind. I knew she was trying to protect me, but I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this story than I realized. The next morning, I decided to reach out to Jasper Monroe, an investigative journalist I'd met at a community planning event. He was known for his tenacity and his knack for uncovering hidden truths. If anyone could help me dig deeper, it was him. "Jasper, it's Avery Winslow," I said when he answered, trying to keep my voice steady. "I need your help with something." "Of course, Avery," he replied, his tone warm and curious. "What's going on?" I explained the situation, the blueprint, and my suspicions about the Everetts. Jasper listened intently, asking questions that made me realize just how little I actually knew. "This sounds big," he said finally. "I'll see what I can find. But Avery, you should be prepared for whatever comes out. The truth isn't always easy." "I know," I replied, a lump forming in my throat. "But I have to do this." As I hung up, I felt a mix of fear and determination. I was stepping into a world of secrets and power plays, and I had no idea what I might uncover. But I was ready to face it, whatever it took. The day wore on, filled with a tension that seemed to seep into everything I did. I couldn't shake the feeling that the blueprint was just the tip of the iceberg. That beneath it lay layers of betrayal and deceit I hadn't even begun to uncover. But I was ready. For my dad, for his legacy, and for the truth that had been buried for too long. Whatever the cost, I was determined to see this through. The cafe buzzed with the low hum of conversations and the clinking of cups. But I barely noticed as Jasper and I pored over the documents he'd managed to dig up. They were spread across the table like pieces of a puzzle, each one revealing a little more of the tangled web that had ensnared my father. "Look at this," Jasper said, pointing to a contract with Margot Everett's signature scrawled at the bottom. "It seems she pressured your dad into abandoning the project, promising investments that never materialized." I felt a cold anger settle in my chest. "So she set him up to fail," I murmured, my voice barely above a whisper. "And then left him to pick up the pieces." Jasper nodded, his expression grim. "It looks that way. I'm sorry, Avery. This is bigger than I thought." I leaned back in my chair, the weight of the revelation pressing down on me. My father had been manipulated, his dreams crushed by the very people I was now entangled with. And Nolan, how much did he know? My heart twisted at the thought. As if on cue, my phone buzzed with a message from Nolan. He wanted to meet, and I knew I couldn't avoid this confrontation any longer. I needed to know where he stood, even if the truth shattered everything between us. We met at the park, the air crisp and the leaves crunching underfoot. Nolan's face was a mix of concern and determination, his usual easy smile absent. "What's going on, Avery?" he asked, his voice steady but edged with tension. "I found out more about the project," I said, watching his reaction closely. "Margot manipulated my dad into abandoning it. She used him, Nolan." He looked away, his jaw tightening. "I talked to my mom. She said it was just business, that your dad wasn't ready for something so big." "That's not true, and you know it," I shot back, my frustration boiling over. "She set him up to fail, and it ruined him." Nolan's eyes met mine, conflicted and pained. "Avery, I didn't know. I swear. My family. They keep things from me too. Do you believe me?" I asked, my voice softer now, pleading. He hesitated, and that pause was like a knife to my heart. "I want to, but it's hard. They're my family." I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. "I need you to be on my side, Nolan. I can't do this alone." He reached for my hand, his grip firm but unsure. "I'm here, Avery. I'll help you, but I need to understand more." As we stood there, the distance between us felt both vast and fragile. I knew this was just the beginning of a long and difficult road, but at least Nolan was willing to walk it with me. Later that night, I sat with Jasper again, trying to piece together our next move. "What now?" I asked, feeling the weight of the task ahead. "We need more evidence," Jasper replied, his eyes scanning the documents. "Something that ties Margot directly to the financial ruin." I nodded, determination hardening my resolve. "Whatever it takes, we'll find it." But just as we were about to wrap up, Jasper's phone buzzed with an incoming call. He answered, his face growing serious as he listened. "Okay, thanks for the heads up," he said before hanging up. "What is it?" I asked, sensing another twist. "There's a rumor," Jasper said slowly, "that Margot's planning a new development, something big. She might be using the same tactic she used on your dad." The revelation hit me like a punch to the gut. This wasn't just about my father's past, it was about preventing future harm. Margot was still playing her games, and more people could get hurt. I felt a surge of urgency, a need to stop her before she could ruin more lives. This wasn't just about justice for my dad anymore, it was about protecting others from the same fate. As I left Jasper's office, the cool night air did little to calm the storm inside me. I knew the path ahead would be fraught with challenges, but I was ready to face them. For my father, for the truth, and for the chance to stop Margot before she could do more damage. The stakes had just been raised, and I was more determined than ever to see this through, whatever the cost. As I sat at my desk, staring at the jumble of papers and notes, the weight of everything pressed down on me. My career was on shaky ground, my personal life in turmoil, and the truth seemed more elusive than ever. I needed a break, a moment to breathe, but there was no time for that now. Not when the stakes were so high. The doorbell rang, pulling me from my thoughts. It was Lorraine, her expression a mix of concern and something else, an urgency I hadn't seen before. "Avery, we need to talk," she said, her voice firm but gentle. I nodded, motioning for her to sit. "What's going on, Mom?" She took a deep breath, her eyes meeting mine with a seriousness that made my heart skip. "There's something I haven't told you. Something about your father." I felt a chill run through me. "What do you mean?" Lorraine hesitated, choosing her words carefully. "Your father. He knew what Margot was capable of. He suspected she was trying to sabotage him, but he couldn't prove it." "Why didn't he say anything?" I asked, frustration bubbling up. "He wanted to protect you," she replied, her voice breaking slightly. "He thought if he kept quiet, he could handle it on his own." I leaned back, absorbing the revelation. My father had known, and yet he'd chosen silence. It made sense, in a way. He was always trying to shield me from the harsh realities of the world, even at his own expense. Lorraine reached into her bag and pulled out an envelope, worn and yellowed with age. "He left this for you." I didn't know when the right time was, but I think you need it now. I took the envelope, my hands trembling slightly. Inside was a letter, the familiar scrawl of my father's handwriting bringing a lump to my throat. As I read, his words were both a comfort and a call to action. He spoke of forgiveness, of love, and of finding peace amidst chaos. But he also urged me to be strong, to fight for what was right. "Thank you," I whispered, folding the letter carefully. It was what I needed, a reminder of the man he was and the legacy he left behind. Lorraine smiled softly, her eyes glistening. "He'd be proud of you, Avery. You're doing the right thing." I nodded, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. But as I sat there, another thought crept in. What if this fight wasn't just about my father? What if it was about preventing others from falling into the same trap? Later, as I met with Jasper, I shared the contents of the letter. He listened intently, nodding in understanding. "This changes things," he said. "It's not just about revenge anymore, is it?" "No," I replied, my voice steady. "It's about justice. For my dad, and for anyone else Margot might hurt." Jasper leaned back, considering. "We need to be smart about this. Margot's powerful, and she won't go down without a fight." I agreed, but there was something else gnawing at me. What if there's more to this? What if Margot's not the only one involved? Jasper's eyes narrowed, intrigued. What are you thinking? I don't know yet, I admitted. But I have a feeling there's more to uncover. As we planned our next steps, I couldn't shake the feeling that the ground was shifting beneath us. The power dynamics were changing, and I needed to be ready for whatever came next. That evening, I met Nolan for dinner, hoping to find some solace in his presence. But as we talked, I realized things were more complicated than ever. He was supportive, yes, but there was a distance between us, a tension that hadn't been there before. Avery, I've been thinking, he said, his fork pausing midair. What if we're going about this the wrong way? What do you mean? I asked, wary of where this was going. Maybe there's a way to resolve this without tearing everything apart, he suggested, his eyes searching mine. A way to find peace without destroying my family. I sighed, understanding his dilemma, but feeling the pull of my own convictions. I don't want to hurt anyone, Nolan. But I can't ignore what happened. I know, he replied, reaching for my hand. I just hope there's a way for both of us to get what we need. As we sat there, the unspoken words hung heavy in the air. We were on the same side, but the path forward was anything but clear. And as much as I wanted to believe in a peaceful resolution, I knew the fight was far from over. The stakes were higher than ever, and the twists and turns of this journey were only just beginning. But with my father's words as my guide, I was ready to face whatever came next, armed with the knowledge that justice was worth fighting for. The gala was in full swing, the room filled with the clinking of glasses and the low hum of polite conversation. I stood at the edge of the crowd, my heart pounding as I scanned the room for Margot. This was it, the moment I'd been preparing for, the confrontation I couldn't avoid any longer. I spotted her near the center of the room, surrounded by admirers and hangers-on, her laugh ringing out like a bell. She was the picture of elegance and control, but I knew better. I knew the facade she wore so well. Taking a deep breath, I pushed through the crowd, my mind racing with everything I needed to say. As I approached, Margot's eyes met mine, and for a fleeting second, I saw something flicker there, recognition, perhaps even fear. Avery, she said, her voice smooth and practiced. What a surprise to see you here. Margot, I replied, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside me. We need to talk. She raised an eyebrow, a hint of amusement playing at her lips. Talk? About what? About my father, I said, my words cutting through the chatter around us. And about what you did to him. The smile on her face faltered, replaced by a cool, calculating gaze. I have no idea what you're talking about. Don't play games with me, I insisted, my voice rising. I know about the project, about how you manipulated him. The room seemed to still, the air thick with tension. Margot's expression hardened, her eyes narrowing. You're making quite the scene, Avery. I suggest you think carefully about what you're saying. I could feel the eyes of the crowd on us, the whispers starting to spread. But I didn't care. This was about my father, about the truth that had been buried for too long. Why? I demanded, my voice breaking slightly. Why did you do it? Margot's facade cracked, just for a moment. Your father was in over his head, she said, her voice low and sharp. I did what was necessary. Necessary? I echoed, disbelief and anger mixing in my tone. You ruined him. She leaned in, her voice barely a whisper. He was a threat to everything I've built. I couldn't let him succeed. The admission hung between us, raw and undeniable. I felt a surge of anger, but also something else, a deep, aching sadness. This was the truth I'd been seeking, but it was more bitter than I'd imagined. Before I could respond, Nolan appeared at my side, his expression a mix of shock and dismay. Avery, what's going on? I'm finding out the truth, I replied, my voice steady but my heart aching. He looked between us, his loyalty torn, and I could see the conflict in his eyes. Mom, is it true? Margot hesitated, her gaze flicking to Nolan, and I saw a crack in her armor. It's complicated, Nolan. Complicated? I repeated, my voice rising again. You destroyed my father's life, and you call it complicated? Nolan's face fell, the weight of the revelation settling over him. Avery, I didn't know. I swear. I believe you, I said softly, my anger giving way to exhaustion. But it doesn't change what happened. As the room buzzed with the aftermath of our confrontation, I felt the enormity of the situation pressing down on me. This was bigger than just my father's legacy. It was about justice, about making sure Margot couldn't hurt anyone else. But as I stood there, I realized something else. Revenge wouldn't bring my father back. It wouldn't heal the wounds that had been opened. I needed to find a way forward, a way to honor my father without losing myself in the process. Nolan touched my arm, his expression earnest. "Avery, let's figure this out together. There has to be a way." I nodded, grateful for his support, but knowing the path ahead wouldn't be easy. Margot was powerful, and she wouldn't go down without a fight. But with Nolan by my side, I felt a spark of hope. As the night wore on, I knew I was at a crossroads. The confrontation had been a turning point, forcing me to reevaluate my goals and my understanding of justice. It was time to fight for what was right, but also to find peace within myself. The road ahead was uncertain, but I was ready to face it, armed with the truth and the determination to see it through. Whatever it took, I would make sure my father's legacy lived on and that Margot's reign of manipulation came to an end. The days following the gala were a blur of tension and uncertainty. The confrontation with Margot had left me feeling raw and exposed, and the fallout was more than I'd anticipated. Rumors swirled through the town, whispers of scandal and betrayal that seemed to follow me everywhere I went. I sat in Jasper's cluttered office, the weight of everything pressing down on me. He was flipping through a folder, his brow furrowed in concentration. "We've got a problem," he said finally, looking up with a grim expression. "What now?" I asked, bracing myself for more bad news. "Margot's moving fast," Jasper replied, handing me a document. "She's shifting assets, covering her tracks. If we don't act soon, we might lose our chance to prove anything." I felt a cold knot of fear settle in my stomach. Margot was slipping through our fingers, and with her, the chance to bring justice for my father. "What can we do?" I asked, desperation creeping into my voice. "We need more evidence," Jasper said, his tone urgent. "Something concrete that ties her to the sabotage." I nodded, trying to muster the energy to keep fighting. But the truth was, I was exhausted. My career was in jeopardy, my relationship with Nolan strained, and the path forward seemed more uncertain than ever. As I left Jasper's office, my phone buzzed with a message from Nolan. He wanted to meet, and I knew I couldn't put it off any longer. We needed to talk, to figure out where we stood in the midst of this chaos. We met at the park, the same place where we'd had so many conversations before. But this time, the air was heavy with unspoken words and unresolved tension. "Avery, I've been thinking," Nolan began, his voice tentative, "about everything that's happened." "Me too," I replied, my heart aching with the weight of what I needed to say. He looked at me, his eyes searching. "I want to help, but I'm not sure how. My family, they're not going to stop." "I know," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "But I can't give up, Nolan. I have to see this through." He nodded, but I could see the conflict in his eyes. "I'm with you, Avery. But this is tearing us apart." I felt a pang of guilt, knowing how much I was asking of him. "I don't want to lose you," I admitted, my voice breaking. "We'll figure it out," he said, but there was an uncertainty in his tone that mirrored my own fears. As we parted ways, I felt more alone than ever. The fight for justice had consumed everything, and I was starting to wonder if it was worth the cost. Back at home, I found Lorraine waiting for me, her expression worried. "Avery, you look exhausted," she said, reaching out to touch my arm. "I'm fine, Mom," I replied, though I knew it was far from the truth. She sighed, her eyes filled with concern. "You can't do this alone. Let me help." I shook my head, the weight of the past few weeks pressing down on me. "I don't know how to fix this," I admitted, my voice barely holding steady. Lorraine pulled me into a hug, her warmth a small comfort against the storm raging inside me. "We'll find a way," she said softly. "Your father would want you to be happy, Avery, not consumed by this." Her words lingered in my mind, a reminder of what truly mattered. But as much as I wanted to let go, to find peace, the thought of walking away felt like a betrayal of everything my father had stood for. The next day, as I sat in my office, trying to focus on work, my phone buzzed with a call from Jasper. "Avery, you need to see this," he said, urgency in his voice. I rushed to his office, my heart pounding with a mix of hope and dread. Jasper met me at the door, a file in hand. "We've got a lead," he said, his eyes bright with determination. "What is it?" I asked, feeling a flicker of hope. "There's a new witness," Jasper explained. "Someone who worked with Margot and might have evidence of her involvement." The news was a lifeline, a glimmer of hope in the midst of despair. But as we delved into the details, I realized the risk involved. This witness was taking a huge gamble, and if Margot found out, the consequences could be dire. As I left Jasper's office, the weight of the decision settled over me. The path to justice was fraught with danger, but it was also the only way forward. I had to decide if I was willing to take the risk, to push forward despite the odds stacked against me. The stakes had never been higher, and the pressure was mounting. But with the promise of new evidence, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. I was at my lowest point, but from here, the only way to go was up. Whatever it took, I would fight for the truth, for my father, and for the chance to finally bring Margot to justice. The tension in Franklin Everett's study was palpable, the air thick with anticipation and unspoken words. I stood across from him, the weight of the past weeks pressing down on me. This was it, the moment everything had been leading to, the confrontation that would determine the future of my father's legacy. Franklin sat behind his desk, his expression a mix of regret and resolve. "Avery," he began, his voice steady but tinged with something deeper. "I owe you an apology." I nodded, my heart pounding. "I need to know the truth, Franklin. All of it." He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Margot and I, we made mistakes. We were ambitious, too focused on what we could gain, and we lost sight of what really mattered. You destroyed my father's dream," I said, my voice firm but laced with emotion. "You ruined his life." Franklin's eyes met mine, filled with a sorrow that seemed genuine. "I know, and I've lived with that guilt every day. But I want to make it right if you'll let me." I hesitated, the offer unexpected but not unwelcome. "How?" "I can help you restore his project," Franklin replied, leaning forward. "I have contacts, resources. We can bring his vision to life." The offer hung between us, a lifeline I hadn't anticipated. But as much as I wanted to accept, there was still the question of Margot, her actions, and the impact they'd had on so many lives. "What about Margot?" I asked, my voice steady. "She can't keep getting away with this." Franklin nodded, understanding. "I've spoken to her. She's agreed to step back, to let us move forward without interference." I felt a flicker of hope, but also skepticism. "And you trust her?" "I don't know," Franklin admitted, his voice heavy. "But I'm willing to try. For you, for your father, and for Nolan." The mention of Nolan brought a fresh wave of emotion. He was caught in the middle, torn between his family and the truth. But this was bigger than us, bigger than the past. It was about justice, about doing what was right. As I considered Franklin's offer, the door swung open, and Margot entered, her expression unreadable. "Avery," she said, her voice cool but not unkind. "I hear you've been busy." I straightened, meeting her gaze head-on. "I'm not going to let you get away with what you did." She paused, her eyes flicking to Franklin before returning to me. "I've made mistakes," she admitted, surprising me with her candor. "But I want to make amends." "Why now?" I challenged, my skepticism clear. "Because I've seen what this has done to my family," Margot replied, her voice softer. "To Nolan, to Franklin. I don't want to lose them." The admission was unexpected, a crack in the armor she'd worn for so long. But as much as I wanted to believe her, I knew actions spoke louder than words. "I need proof," I said, my voice firm. "Proof that you're serious about this." Margot nodded, a flicker of determination in her eyes. "You'll have it. Whatever you need to move forward, I'll provide." The room fell silent, the weight of the moment settling over us. This was it, the resolution I hadn't dared to hope for, the chance to honor my father's legacy and find peace. As I left the study, I felt a sense of clarity I hadn't experienced in weeks. The path forward was still uncertain, but with Franklin's support and Margot's promise, I was ready to take the next steps. Outside, I found Nolan waiting, his expression a mix of hope and concern. "How did it go?" he asked, his voice tentative. "It's a start," I replied, feeling a sense of relief wash over me. "Franklin's going to help. And Margot. She's agreed to back off." Nolan nodded, a flicker of hope in his eyes. "I'm glad. I know it's been hard, but I'm proud of you, Avery." I smiled, the tension of the past weeks finally beginning to lift. "Thank you, Nolan, for everything." As we stood together, the core themes of my journey, justice, revenge, and forgiveness, came full circle. I realized that true justice wasn't about retribution, but about healing, about finding a way to move forward without losing myself in the process. With the promise of a new beginning, I knew the road ahead would be challenging, but I was ready to face it. For my father, for myself, and for the future we could build together. The morning air was crisp as I stood at the site of my father's long-dormant project, now buzzing with new life and possibility. Construction workers moved with purpose, their energy a testament to the fresh start we were building. Franklin had kept his promise, and together we were breathing life back into my father's dream. I watched as the foundation took shape, feeling a sense of peace I hadn't known in months. This was more than just a project. It was a symbol of resilience, of the legacy my father had left behind. And it was a testament to the power of truth and redemption. Nolan joined me, his presence a comforting anchor. "It's really happening," he said, his voice filled with quiet awe. I nodded, my heart swelling with gratitude. "It is. And I couldn't have done it without you." He smiled, slipping his hand into mine. "I'm proud of you, Avery. You never gave up." As we stood together, I realized how far we'd come. Our relationship had been tested, but we'd emerged stronger, bound by a shared commitment to justice and love. A few days later, we gathered at a small ceremony to commemorate the project's revival. Lorraine was there, her eyes shining with pride. Jasper, too, stood by my side, his role in uncovering the truth pivotal to our success. As the ceremony concluded, Margot approached me, her expression softer than I'd ever seen. "Avery," she began, her voice sincere. "I want to thank you for everything." I met her gaze, searching for any trace of insincerity but finding none. "I didn't do it for you," I replied, my tone gentle but firm. "But I'm glad you're here." She nodded, accepting the truth of my words. "I'm trying to change. For Nolan, for Franklin. I hope one day you can see that." I didn't respond immediately, allowing the moment to settle. Her journey was her own, and while I couldn't forget the past, I could choose to let go of the anger that had once consumed me. As the crowd began to disperse, Lorraine pulled me aside, handing me a small envelope. "I found this in your father's things," she said, her voice filled with emotion. I opened it, my breath catching as I recognized my father's handwriting. The letter was a simple message of love and forgiveness, urging me to find peace in my own heart and to trust in the power of redemption. It was the final piece I needed, a reminder that my father had always believed in the goodness of people, even those who had wronged him. And in that moment, I understood that forgiveness didn't mean forgetting, but rather freeing myself from the burden of the past. Later, as I walked through the site, I felt a sense of closure. My father's legacy was secure, and with it, a future that honored his vision and values. I knew there would still be challenges, but I was ready to face them, armed with the lessons I'd learned. As I turned to leave, a thought lingered in my mind, a question that would remain unanswered. Had Margot truly changed, or was this just another chapter in her complex narrative? It was a question that might never be resolved, but it no longer held power over me. In the end, the journey had been about more than just justice or revenge. It had been about finding my own path, about understanding the complexities of human nature, and about choosing love and forgiveness over bitterness. As I walked away from the site, hand in hand with Nolan, I felt a profound sense of peace. The road ahead was open, filled with possibilities, and I was ready to embrace it with an open heart and a renewed sense of purpose.